The tour continues, taking a tour through Best of the Rest history. It was a blast last time to talk Batman 89. I mean, we've done bonus episodes of the podcast before. We did the technically month where we covered movies that were technically poorly received upon release, but grew to have a very healthy reception and are actually considered classics. We had to talk about Blade Runner and The Thing. So we've talked about great movies before, but even still, this tour is feeling a little different so far. Being able to, like, they cover Batman 89, and the movie we have today is just so far outside of our usual thing. But I'm excited to do it. But we gotta maybe let people know, Andrew. I think it's time to let people know why we're being a little nostalgic about our own podcast and taking this tour and sort of what I think of as like tying up loose ends. You know, we're filling in holes in franchises that we hadn't got to, and then we have some more surprises as the tour rolls on. Last month, December, we ended the year by letting listeners choose the movies that we cover. Basically, we want to just make sure we cover every movie we quote unquote should, every movie we want to, every movie you want us to, because, little twist here, the full name of our theme, it's not just a tour, it's the farewell tour for Best of the Rest. Once we get through these movies, our show comes to an end. It's over. It's, to use a classic phrase, we'll be going on an indefinite hiatus. That's probably fair to say.
Yeah, indefinite hiatus. Never's a long time, but it's being as, transparent without giving away too much of the inside baseball. Time is becoming ever more precious for both of us in an extent. This show has been far more successful than I think either of us ever thought it might be.
Yes.
The traction that it's gotten has been wonderful. And we've been going for, many years at this point.
I never remember when we published our Green Lantern. Our first episode was April 27th, 2021. So we will be, just a couple months shy of our 5-year anniversary when we started. Yeah, 5 years.
And maybe 5 years. Maybe 5 years will be one of those occasions we dust off the microphones. But it's become a lot tougher to do it. Time is tough. Obligations start taking over, and you just, at a certain point, you gotta make those kinds of decisions. I'm really proud of what we've done. I'm really happy with what we've done, especially when I feel like pop culture discourse just continues to get more cynical, and more just almost depressing to engage in, where there just feels like there's this inherent desire to kind of just see things fail or just immediately be cynical about something. And I'm really happy with this kind of little niche corner where we kind of try to focus on the positives that we managed to create. But yeah, the last couple of months, last 8 weeks or so, you're going to see us hitting some missing pieces. And I don't know that there's necessarily anything that you're going to see us cover that is not something that we've mentioned in passing many times at this point. But it's kind of the moment to do that, we think, and kind of end it on a high note as far as covering all of these things. In some cases are just missing pieces of franchises, or in some cases movies that are just personally important to either one of us that we just haven't gotten around and found a theme to fit into. But yeah, indefinite hiatus. And like I said, that doesn't mean nothing ever, but I would not expect anything for a good while.
Yeah, that's fair. Definitely the end of regularly scheduled episodes. We have, and I don't want to, by no means want to tease any additional episodes beyond what's planned because there's nothing planned. But
Right.
I think the episode count is going to end at like 246 or 247 or something like that. And we both were like, it'd be nice if it was 250 though. Just the nice even number. So I don't know. Maybe that inspires us to drop a few more later on, but certainly they're not planned yet. And we'll talk a little bit more over the episodes about why we're doing this or why we felt it was time. Just to echo what you said a little bit. Yeah, time has become precious. And I've personally always prided our podcast on sounding professional, despite being literally just me and you and no network or team. And releasing on a consistent schedule, a weekly schedule, and that has just become harder to do. And even though literally 0 people have complained about it, it stresses me out. And I just don't want to start adjusting my standards just to make sure we force this thing out. And then I just think it's only a matter of time before my stress is read on the microphone and the episodes aren't as fun. And it just seems right to wrap it up before we get to this point because this is kind of supposed to be fun, and I feel like 5 years, that's a good run. It feels right. It feels like it's time, and that's that. Let the farewell tour continue. Andrew, I can't wait to talk about this movie. Theme song.
We're not talking about the best of them. We're just talking about the rest of them.
Not the worst parts, but the best parts. And the best parts we have. The best of the rest.
Hello, and welcome to Best of the Rest. My name is Chris Logan, and I am joined as always by a digital projection of my co-host, Andrew Williams. Say something to the listeners, Andrew.
I could just be a digital projection. You would have no idea.
Perhaps
I really could.
You would have no idea if you were a digital projection currently, Andrew.
I already told you that I have enough problems regarding the reality of existence that the last thing I need is to be like, oh, is any of this real? You know, I lay on the ice sometimes after a game. Like last night I played a hockey game and it ended in a 2-2 tie after a shootout. And I'm laying there on the ice in a heap, heaving breath, and I'm like, just imagine the evolution of humanity from Socrates to this moment of me laying in the middle of a beer league hockey rink, sucking wind because I'm tired. Imagine that's the evolution of humanity you've seen in front of you.
Each week, we take a second look at a movie that was poorly received upon release and challenge ourselves to only talk about the things we like and what the movie does well. This is the Farewell Tour, and today we are talking the 1999 film, The Matrix. Of course, the reason we are covering this movie, despite it not being poorly received by any stretch of the imagination, is because we have covered every other movie in this franchise. We did a whole month on the Matrix franchise, covering Reloaded, Revolutions, and the Resurrections. So this is the only one we haven't covered, and it's weird that we talked so much about this world, but never actually dove into the one that started it all. So today we change all of that and revisit this classic cyberpunk film. Andrew, what's your history with this movie? Did you see it in theaters? Have you watched it?
No,
very often over the years.
I've actually never seen it.
You only saw the sequels for our podcast.
I've actually been watching this franchise in a very odd order, so it's really nice to go back and watch the. It's really nice to go back and watch the prequel. I understand so many of the references now. The de-aging tech for all of the cast is just phenomenal. I think it's the best it's ever looked. It looks like they're really young, like this movie came out like 26 years ago or 27 years ago. Obviously I've seen The Matrix. I remember, I'm sure I've talked about this on our various episodes on The Matrix. We've both talked about our history with The Matrix. Did we ever talk about the Animatrix, or did I just watch that for fun?
You just watched it for fun. We didn't do an episode on it. I'm sure we referenced it plenty of times. I mean,
yeah, because I think that was like, there was a bit in that was a prequel to Reloaded, I think, or
Final Flight of the Osiris, like leads right into the movie.
And I liked a lot of those actually. I still remember the one with the guy just who exercises so hard he breaks himself out of the Matrix.
Yeah, so cool.
And that's the style for that and everything just lives in my head. But no, I obviously this was coming out. I was this was March 99, and so I was about to turn 12, so my parents were not taking me to see the R-rated Matrix. Eventually saw it. I had a former friend of mine, that described it very poorly to me. And I probably talked about this in some of our previous episodes, but like, he was like, "Hey man, did you see The Matrix?" And I was like, No. What's that? What's that? What are you talking about? And he was like, "No, it's this movie with like Keanu Reeves, man, and like 1999 is a dream, and like it turns out there's this whole thing." And I was just like, what? I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. And so I finally watched it, and I was like, wow. Like, I guess on the basis level sense, you're not incorrect, but like it's,
Yeah.
but like what a horrible way to sell this. But obviously saw it not long after that. I mean, there was no way to not watch The Matrix from 99 to 2002. The hype when the sequels were coming out was pretty high. Yeah, I mean, The Matrix has been there forever. It's been around a long time now, and it's been the staple. It's people talk about they talk about like original characters that have entered the like the pop culture lexicon, in a sense of like, original creations in movies that become so popular they kind of make a lasting stay. And I think the most, I mean, maybe John Wick, oddly, Keanu Reeves is probably one of the more recent examples of that, of like an original franchise that kind of spun and built out into this whole big expanded world. Obviously, I would like to say Benoit Blanc, but I don't know that if it's quite to that level. But The Matrix at a certain point was like, this is right before the superhero boom, or like right parallel to the early days of it with the X-Men's and the Spider-Mans. And obviously we're a few years before the the birth of the MCU and The Dark Knight and things like that. But this was huge. The Matrix was a massive deal. There was no way to escape from it. You watched The Matrix one way or another, whether you liked it or not. Like, Wayne's World, he makes the joke that, everyone owned Frampton Comes Alive because if you lived in the suburbs, you were issued it. The Matrix felt kind of similar, where like you couldn't, like, you had to see The Matrix. You like, so it's to the point where like even people that didn't watch movies were just like, man, what's this Matrix thing? A little bit of a Sixth Sense thing there too. Like, I remember when Sixth Sense came out, that was the thing you like had to watch. But like, yeah, I mean, so I didn't see it in theaters. Obviously, saw it later. Saw the sequels in theaters, I'm pretty sure.
Even I saw The Matrix.
Even Liz saw The Matrix, which she just leaned her head in to tell me. So
I think it's the first on mic appearance. So hi, Liz.
She's gone again, but it's so it's a trip. It's a trip in that regard, that like it really was that popular that like you couldn't get away from it. And so I won't say that. Obviously, I feel like we've talked about this so much already on our other episodes about it, but I have never had the affinity for it that you have, obviously. Like, this is one of those situations where like there's a much deeper love for it that you have than I have. But like, I've always been a fan. I will admit, before we did the sequels, I was very much one of those like, The Matrix is really good, but the sequels are kind of eh. And like rewatching them with the show, a little bit like The Village. I'm no longer a hater. But it's, yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable.
I even saw the sequel.
Even she saw the sequels.
I love it. I love it. I don't know how
well those are going to come through, but make sure that they're boosted up there. But
for emphasis, I mean, I don't know Liz that well, but like, it's a big deal if she sees a movie in theaters, right? She doesn't have the affinity for films that you do.
We've seen maybe 6 movies in theaters together in like the 7.5 years we've been together. So
wild.
Some of that was just COVID, but yeah, we've seen like, what have we seen? I took her to see Superman last year. We saw a bunch because we saw the new I Know What You Did Last Summer, because that's one of our favorite like comfort slasher of the time movies we like watch. Just you watch those movies and you're like, yep, that's 97 for sure. But so we saw the new one of those. We saw Superman. We saw Wake Up Dead Man. We saw Glass Onion when it came out. I think we saw Black Widow at Alamo just because we were in Houston. We wanted to go to Alamo. Yeah, it's like it's less than 10. It's not a lot. But
Well,
yeah.
it didn't dawn on me until you said, you mentioned like I have a deep love for this movie and this franchise, that this is pretty much the inverse of last week talking about Batman, a movie that I also love very much as a big part of my life, but like not to the level it is for you.
Yeah.
Whereas, you, I'm sure, love The Matrix like everyone else, but it's like a formative movie for me. It's in my DNA. I did see it in theaters, even though I was 10 and a half years old.
Wow.
I wouldn't be 11 till the end of the year.
Reckless abandon with the
I know.
parenting there.
It was my aunt, actually. Shout out Aunt Tammy for taking me to. I actually
You should
mentioned
be
this
ashamed
to
of yourself.
I mentioned this to her recently. I was like, we saw The Matrix together in theaters. She's like, oh, I don't remember that, but I do. I know the theater that we went to was Deerbrook Mall. They have AMC there, and
Is it still there?
It is actually, yeah.
Wow.
I probably did not understand this movie very well at the time or at all. Definitely the philosophy, I'm sure, was lost on me. But the special effects were so cool, which is what everyone was talking about, of course, at the time. And I saw the sequels in theaters. We probably had the VHS, but of course, me personally would eventually buy the DVD and then the Blu-ray box set, which I have with me right here, the Ultimate Matrix Collection.
Speaking of Matrix DVDs, even.
Yes, you recently picked up a half-price books, the DVD of this movie. We will talk about a little bit more about why you did that later in the episode,
Yeah.
I'm sure. I also happen to have the newer Deja Vu collection, which has Resurrections in it. I thought at the time I got the Deja Vu collection, I was like, okay, well, maybe I don't need my Blu-ray collection anymore. Then I remembered it had the Animatrix in it, which the new box set does not for some reason. So I was like, all right, I guess I'll hold on to it. And then this week, diving a little bit more into the special features, I realized that like all of the documentaries, like this box set, the Blu-ray box set is full of documentaries. Each movie has a feature-length documentary, and there's a ton of stuff. This new set strips out a lot of the special features. So there's a lot of stuff missing. So I will just
So the Deja
sets.
Vu collection is basically just like bare bones.
Like, yeah, so like in the Ultimate Matrix collections, the Matrix just has one disc, but that one disc also has the feature-length Matrix Revisited documentary and a bunch of other stuff. I popped in the Blu-ray disc from the Deja Vu collection because it has the Blu-ray set and the 4K set in there. So I popped in the newer Blu-ray disc for the Matrix, and it's just the movie and commentaries. So it's not even like they didn't even like literally repurpose the same disc. They make like a new bare bones disc for the new set. Anyway, this is all nerdy stuff. I'm a big fan of the franchise. That's all I want to say, and I want to show off my box sets, even though the listeners can't see me. But yeah, I love this franchise.
I feel bad sometimes that I own multiple versions of something. Like, there's a really good chance that when it's all said and done, I'm going to have 3 different versions of the A Better Tomorrow trilogy. And your Matrix set makes me feel if the way you are to the Matrix is how I am with the Better Tomorrow trilogy. So that balances out in a way. But like there's literally going to be, I have the Shout version. There's an Imprint Films version. And then there will eventually be an Arrow version in the UK. And I probably will buy all 3. Same with Hard Boiled and all those.
And you're telling yourself that it's because there's a slight difference in the subtitles for each region because they're translated by different teams. But really, you just want a bunch of different covers of a cool movie that you love. I mean, I don't know if you're ready to admit that or not, but
I never denied that.
Okay. Well, you told me the subtitle.
I will say the Arrow Video Hard Boiled cover goes way harder than the Shout one does. The Shout one's like boring by comparison.
Dude, you sent me you sent me a screenshot of the steelbook for Ghost in the Shell that you got in.
Yep.
Which I didn't even know that thing was released. It was an import. Was that a UK release?
Amazon UK, yeah.
Yeah, a movie that I love, and I watched this week after watching The Matrix, and I'll talk more about that later. I have a steelbook that I love that looks super cool, but I saw your steelbook and I was like, do I need another one though? That cover goes so hard. I did not order it. I restrained myself, but yeah, I don't know. You love something, go all in. Andrew,
if you love something, buy it 3 times. But
let's set the stage for this movie. It was released March 31st, 1999, the best year in film, I say. It's created on a budget of $63 million.
We've been through this, Chris. You're wrong.
$63 million. That's crazy.
Yes.
Low, right? Lower. Like, if you made this movie today, it would cost 3 times as much and not look as good. Sorry, hashtag PP, I guess. That blows my mind. They did this for $63 million. At the box office, Andrew, it makes a little bit of money, $467.8 million. And this movie is rated R. That is bonkers. Critically, it is a hit. 83% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. Audiences loved it. A little bit higher, 85% audience. I was expecting to be in the 90s for this installment, but that's fine. Still a great score. But yeah, this movie is just beloved. It hits at the box office and critically. It has a lasting legacy. People still hold it up to this day. It's a landmark film in blockbusters and sci-fi and cyberpunk and action film, action cinema. It has an X factor that I can think of. Like, I'm trying not to be hyperbolic, but I also want to put an emphasis on how big of a deal this was. I think there's maybe like 2 movies I can think of in my lifetime that like it's greater than the sum of its parts. Like this, like The Matrix and The Dark Knight just kind of transcend being a popular blockbuster movie and just like immediately enter pop culture and have this like sterling legacy. And again, they're respected critically and to hit with audiences and make a lot of money. Just enter a whole new stratosphere of beloved film, and it's truly something special going on here.
That's why I've always said that The Matrix is the Ghostbusters of its time. That's, you know.
I'm honestly racking my brain wondering if you have said that before, if you maybe made that point.
No, I have absolutely never said that before. But just
I mean, the second one isn't as revered as the original.
It's the original. Well, Dark Knight is the combo breaker there, and then it is the sequel to the original. But like,
that's true.
It's just Men in Black and the same vibe of like Men in Black. Ghostbusters and Men in Black is a much more analogous comparison. Sure. I think that like where this first installment is just this lightning in a bottle that the sequels never quite get. And I'm sure there's actually people who would say that exact same thing about The Matrix to an extent, that the first movie, like being greater than the sum of its parts, is lightning in a bottle to an extent. And I think there are people who would definitely, not an insignificant amount of people that would say that the sequels don't quite get that same bit of magic.
I mean, that's why we covered them on our podcast. Yeah, it's definitely.
And so I think that's fair.
Perception.
I still have never actually said that The Matrix is the Ghostbusters of its time. I have said probably that Men in Black is the Ghostbusters of its time. But
to my dramatic X Factor point, I'm sure I wasn't around when Ghostbusters came out, but I'm sure if I was, I would be like, yeah, this is Batman '89 maybe was one too, where like it's just
even Batman
immediately
like. Batman is still Batman. Like there's still like people still know who Batman is in '89. Like Ghostbusters is a little bit different in that like this is like the Ghostbusters logo doesn't exist before that movie, and now it's this like defining piece of pop culture. Like everybody knows what that symbol means. Like it's probably one of the most like identifiable pop culture icons or logos of all time, and it's wild. It's tough, and Matrix doesn't really have any kind of piece, except maybe the tinted green screen. That's Matrix's legacy. But
the digital rain. I mean, the Matrix code. Like everybody in the early 2000s was like downloading wallpapers
and like all sorts of stuff that was like all
kinds of like knockoff versions of it.
And that's a true key of like when people are like, oh, has something like entered pop culture? And it's like, yes, if you see it in unrelated places, yeah, probably. there is an X factor sometimes. There's something that you just can't quite, and it happens with movies all the time. But like lightning in a bottle is kind of always of how I've always kind of viewed it, especially with Ghostbusters, and that like Ghostbusters is just this perfect combination of things that comes together to make something that exists in a way that just like even all of the same people doing the same thing again can't quite do it again. And Dark Knight is kind of, and I guess maybe it's because Batman Begins, while it's quote unquote good, doesn't like transcend pop culture in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It basically, Batman Begins puts the ball on the tee so that Dark Knight can just crush it out of the park. And it's.
And what is the park here, Andrew? You talking about the ballpark that you play golf in?
Yeah.
Or is it T-ball? Are we hitting a home run in T-ball? I'm just trying to track your analogy of putting the ball on the tee and then hitting the ball out of the park.
Yeah, I would clearly be talking about T-ball.
Okay.
Why? You don't play golf in a park.
I know, but when you put a ball on a tee, the first thing I think of is golf. But it's still very funny to me that you're using a T-ball analogy for
in the sense that Batman Begins makes Dark Knight's job makes the work Dark Knight needs to do easier.
Hang on, when someone says that they teed it up for you, are you thinking of T-ball?
Are you not supposed to?
I don't know. I'm having a crisis on mic right now. I've always thought it was golf.
I always assumed it was T-ball because, yeah, it's easier to hit a baseball when it's on a tee in front of you. It's easier to hit a home run. Yeah, isn't that the whole analogy? It's easier to hit a home run when it's on a tee in front of you?
Well, that's actually not true because you need the velocity of the pitch to make it out of the park.
Maybe you do.
I don't know enough about it to be sure, but I don't know if I don't think pro ball players can hit a home run off
I'm lying, man. I don't care. That's how I've always interpreted it.
Interesting. Should we Google on Mike
all,
who's right, or just
all golf balls are on a tee? You don't hit a golf ball unless it's on a tee for the most part. Like when you're starting,
only when you tee off. Like
right, like but that's the standard process. Why would you be having an advantage by somebody teeing it up for you? It should always be teed up for you.
Only on a drive. It's much easier to hit a ball far if it's on a tee versus off the ground.
Well, yeah, but you're not hitting it far otherwise, unless you suck.
I don't know. We've come to an impasse here. I don't know who's correct. I'm not going to Google it. I'm going to let it linger in the air, and I'm sure none of
you weigh in on this. None of you. You leave it alone, and you let us sit with this.
This movie is written and directed by the Wachowskis.
Hey, I want to talk about box office for a second.
Is some other good movies in theaters in 1999?
Yeah, I was going to check because it comes out at Man Village Theater on March 24th, and then it comes out basically Easter weekend in the United States and has an opening weekend of, let's do the full Easter weekend. That's like 4 movies. Let's do this Easter weekend there. Okay. So this movie opens at number 1. It is followed by another new release that some would say also has its own pop culture following.
You would think, I'm really not great at the box office thing for specific weekends. I can usually think of a year. And as much as I've said 1999 is the greatest year in film, you think I'd be able to rattle a bunch of them off right now. But anytime I'm put on the spot, I can't do it. I know The Sixth Sense comes out later in the year, so that's not out yet.
Number 1.
I'm not
Domestic weekend, April 2nd to 4th, 1999. The Matrix, at number 1 with 27 million. It has already grossed 10 million to that point, I think because it opened earlier in the week. It opened on March 31st. So it actually opened on the Wednesday before Easter. Featuring a guy who comes back from the dead.
Oh,
interesting.
Yeah, very astute.
Highest grossing religious film of all time. But number 2, 10 Things I Hate About You. And its opening weekend, making 11 million. And
Great
then
movie.
The Out of Towners opening in at number 3.
The Out of Towners. Who is that?
It is Steve Martin and is it Diane Keaton that's in that? God, that was a reboot of a television show. Goldie Hawn, sorry, not Diane Keaton. I got my members of the First Wives Club mixed up. But
Andrew, can I tell you something that you're gonna hate?
Sure.
You jokingly just said that The Matrix was the highest grossing religious film. Passion of the Christ made $612 million.
I knew that. I knew that. Yeah. Anyway. Number 4, moving
Do
down
we need to clarify that the is at Mel Gibson and not at Jesus Christ? Just to... Actually, I don't want to speak for you. Maybe it was.
I don't really have any issues with Jesus. It's his fan base that concerns me.
Okay, fair. That's fair.
But anyway, it's so opening at number 4 that opening weekend is Analyze This, moving from number 2 to number 4 in its 5th week of release, so racking up 78 million domestically by that point. Number 5 is Forces of Nature, a movie that I
Ben Affleck and Sandra Bullock.
Yep.
I saw that in
believe
theaters,
so.
Andrew. Don't ask me
Indeed.
why.
Number 6, Ed TV.
Movie we've covered on
Love
this
of the
very
show.
podcast.
Number 7 is Shakespeare in Love. In its 17th week of release at $84 million. 17th week of release. That is 4 months later, still making over $3 million a weekend. That is insane to think about. Number 8, Doug's first movie. You could make an animated film off a television show and have it in the top 10 box office. Number 9, Life is Beautiful, one of the most devastating movies of all time. I can't even describe its plot without being emotionally devastated. And then number 10 is oddly The Mod Squad. They made a Mod Squad movie based off the TV show. People whine about nothing's original anymore. This top 10 includes a movie based off a cartoon, a Shakespeare adaptation, and 2 reboots of 70s television shows. There's nothing original anymore, folks. Cinema was dead in April of 99.
Is Life is Beautiful the Italian film? I wasn't familiar with it, so I googled it real fast. Is it an Italian
It's the one
movie?
about the dad and his son in the concentration camp where he keeps making up wild fantasies to distract his son from the horror of what's happening.
Oh my god!
It's absolutely don't watch it.
It looks like it came out in 1997. So I'm just kind of curious if this was like
it might have taken a while. Might have taken a while for it to come to the States. Anyway, The Matrix holds on to the number 1 spot for 2 weeks. It is eventually supplanted by the movie Life. Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence. Life
Not a bad
knocks
movie.
knocks Matrix out of the number 1 spot in its 3rd week. The Matrix reclaims it in the 4th week. And then is upset in its 5th week by Entrapment. And then the week after Entrapment comes out, The Mummy comes out, which I might have talked about this in one of our other episodes, but just the Entrapment
sexual
followed by
awakening.
The Mummy, that's just
that weekend.
Teenage boys had no chance the summer of 99, apparently. Just no way. The Matrix stays at number 3, though, holds at number 3 until eventually on May 21st, a little movie called Star Wars The Phantom Menace comes out. Knocks it out of the top 3, but stays largely in that top 10 for a long time. It falls to number 10 in its 13th week of release, and that's when it starts to kind of slowly trail off. But that's a solid 3 months that this movie was in theaters, and that's before the summer, and it even holds on to that as the summer season begins, which for a movie that, again, is not really positioned to be a summer blockbuster, especially at the time, does pretty well. It's pretty wild that you think about things like that now, and it's difficult, especially in these ages where Netflix is buying Warner Brothers, and there were people that are like, oh, Netflix is saying there will be a 17-day theatrical window. And now he's come back and said that it's going to be a 45-day window. So basically, they're kind of capping out at essentially 6 weeks. And I mean, I have a lot of problems with that. I think It's neither here nor there. But that's a different discussion for a different day. But for a movie like The Matrix, which is a wholly original property, to come out in early April 99 and by July still be holding on to the top 10 is wild. And it's nuts. It's pretty crazy.
The movie is written and directed by the Wachowskis. It is just their second film after Bound, which is a 4K Criterion I've owned for a while now and still haven't watched. I need to check it out. Wild that this is their second movie. Like I say that a lot about like The Sixth Sense. That's technically his second movie. M. Night Shyamalan's second movie. But that's wild, and just like how well crafted it is, how good it is. This is wild because like they gave them this kind of budget and this amount of time to make the movie, and just so much faith in these creators after having one well-received movie, but fairly low budget that didn't make a huge splash otherwise. It's wild to jump from that to this. It's just crazy. Obviously, we had a chance to talk about the Wachowskis quite a bit. Of course, the Matrix movies. We've also covered Speed Racer and Cloud Atlas. I am a big fan of their work, and even if not every one of their projects clicks with me, I always walk away thinking I'm happy they're out there doing it. I think they maintain, if nothing else, their originality throughout their career, even to something like Speed Racer, where it's based on something. Can't deny that the finished product and the way they went about it wasn't totally original, and we need to always encourage more creators like that. Very similar, actually, to M. Night Shyamalan. Now talking about it, not every movie clicks, but like, damn it, I'm glad you're doing your thing. I feel that way about the Wachowskis.
Absolutely. There's something to be said for taking a swing. And even if it's not out of the park, like I can at least appreciate the passion and the effort. Now that doesn't extend to like U Bowl or anything like that, because I don't really see what he does as taking swings. They're just #PP bat.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said, especially when largely what you're doing are either original concepts almost completely, or at bare minimum, if they are like adaptations, they're kind of a little bit more esoteric. Like Speed Racer, people know what Speed Racer is, but no one really watched Speed Racer. So when you do something like Speed Racer, there's not really a lot of expectations. Now, obviously, M. Night Shyamalan was something like Avatar: The Last Airbender. That was, for a lot of, there are people who still hate him over that. There are people who still hold that against him. Which, okay. But it's, their careers are very interesting. I too own the Criterion Collection of Bound, and have never watched it. But
This is the way.
I also forget they wrote Assassins, the Sylvester Stallone Antonio Banderas movie, directed by Richard Donner of all people. I just like that GIF. I think I've told you that GIF of Antonio Banderas like leaning back and like doing that face, like that's from Assassins.
Yeah, I think I bought that movie off your recommendation from one of the episodes.
It's
I have it. I have it.
it's
digitally.
a,
I should check it out.
I don't. I say you can cut this if you want, but I say this with as much respect as possible. It's a very gay movie. It's not supposed to be, but
It's
by
Top
the
Gun
end,
gay.
yeah, it's
Okay.
a Top Gun vibe in the sense that by the end of it, you're like, wait, why are you guys with the women? Like you're just, I don't understand this. But yeah, and then, but yeah, we've talked about them extensively on the other episodes about this. But yeah, I definitely view them as, creative voices that are willing to take a risk. And like I said, those risks maybe not all always across the board super successful. Lily has not done much in the last few years. Their last joint effort as a film was Jupiter Ascending, which is odd. I don't know why we never got to Jupiter Ascending on this movie. Did we do a Jupiter Ascending here? Did I just forget completely?
No, we haven't. It's on our
Okay.
list, but we never actually covered it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so the works from them have gotten a lot more sparing in the last several years. But like you said, I'm glad they are out there doing their thing. Like I said, their career speaks for itself. Although I think I did just see somebody announce Speed Racer getting the 4K. So
Oh, is that
that'll be
happening?
pretty cool. I think it is.
That's
I think
that's one of, how do I want to say this? It's a movie I don't enjoy watching, but I will buy that 4K day one. I can't explain it.
I'm Eileen,
I'm Spencer, and we host the Royal Highness Podcast.
and for the past 2 years, we've watched George Ruh-Roh Martin shows Stoned, and then we've talked about them while we're still in hand.
Unscripted, unhinged, and gluten-free.
We've covered Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, and then we kind of veered over to The Last Kingdom, but then Westeros once again called.
A Night of the Seven Kingdoms premiered January 18th.
So, while we hit pause on Uhtred and the final Fardacy panty, come on over, join us for Duncan Egg's adventures from a more elevated perspective.
Hey, we're current, we're topical this time.
And between new drops every Wednesday, catch up on our back catalog. Click the link, find us in your favorite podcast app, or search for us on YouTube.
Rated R for language and adult themes.
And some nudity.
Yeah, they said they are doing Speed Racer this year. You said Cloud Atlas was another one, didn't we just get that one too?
Yeah, Shout just did that one. I
Yeah,
still need to
so
pick it up, actually, but yeah.
Slowly working through all of those. Like we're at a point where almost the entirety of the Wachowski filmography is in 4K now. I think, yeah, Jupiter Ascending might be the only one not at this point, because if they've done Cloud Atlas and they're doing Speed Racer, the Matrix stuff certainly all is. Bound is. Matrix Resurrections is. So Jupiter Ascending is pretty much the only one left as far as remaining items to be done in 4K. So cool.
Well, Andrew, let's jump into it. Let's talk about it. Let's try to come up with some positives to say about the Matrix. You ready?
Woof. Yeah.
Well, normally this is where I read a synopsis for a film, but unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. Andrew, no one can be told what the Matrix is. They have to see it for themselves. You're just staring at me. And now his hand is on his head. Folks, I did write a synopsis, even though who needs this? You've seen it. But here we go. Here's what this movie's about. Thomas Anderson is a programmer and computer hacker that is disillusioned with his unfulfilling life when he is approached by Trinity, who offers to help him in a search for purpose. She does this by introducing him to Morpheus, a mysterious figure that explains to Thomas, or Neo as he is called online, that the world he has known his entire life is an illusion, a digital construct meant to keep his mind trapped while his real body is held captive by machines and used to produce energy for their city. He further explains that he believes Neo is the prophesized man known as the One, who will free humanity from bondage. Because of his purpose, Neo gains extraordinary powers within the Matrix and helps lead the team of rebels against programs within the Matrix that fight for the machines known as agents. And there's a lot of bullets and guns and leather and slow-mo, and it's awesome. Andrew, I can't wait to talk about it. But first, you know what we got to do. Talk about the cast of this film, starting with the high point, the best casting, the best performance in the movie, because every episode recognizes one person who goes so far above and beyond the Call of Duty that they actually elevate the quality of the entire film with their performance. And we recognize that person by giving them the Mark Strong Award. So, Andrew, kick us off. Who is getting your Mark Strong Award for The Matrix?
John Woo for inventing bullet time. No, I'm kidding. No, I was a little curious who I was going to think coming out of this was the Mark Strong, because I know there's a lot of really good performances here. I wouldn't be shocked if we diverge on this. I'm not entirely sure where you're going to go with this, but I am going to be going with Lawrence Fishburne as Morpheus. I think this is truly, and there's one really close behind this. And I feel like there's two I guess So I guess there's like, God, it's tough. There's like 3 roles that are kind of like all right neck and neck for me, and I feel bad because none of them are Neo. But it's
there's no way to check our previous Mark Strong Award winners. We know that. I'm curious if Keanu Reeves ever picked one up, even though I think he's perfect casting and I love him in the role.
Yeah. There's just
I'm
a lot of other
also-
people.
By the way, I'm also saying Lawrence Fishburne. I'm going with Fish as
there it
Morpheus
is.
for this
It's
one too.
Fish.
So we're agreeing here.
I didn't even get to the "it's Fish" joke before you had to take it from me. But
sorry.
it's
You knew it was coming. Everyone knew it was coming.
Now, I've known Fish since I was 18 years old.
So first and foremost, this is an absolute like home run performance. Lawrence Fishburne is perfect casting for this. If someone were to tell me one of their issues with Resurrections is that Yahuwah is not as good as Lawrence Fishburne, I have no response to that because nobody's as good as Lawrence Fishburne. He's Fish. But he is fantastic in this role. But one of the things that I think really sells this for me is just how steadfast he is in his beliefs. The strong sense that he has about Neo and his place and the lengths the character is willing to go. All of that comes through in his performance so well, to the point that when he makes sacrifices and when he like stays behind to let Neo get away in those moments, they hit all the more because you know he is so strong in his belief about what he's doing. And that's, I think, the piece that sold it for me, was just that, like, this is the guy who is like, you can do this, and I know you can do this. And even when he's told, I'm not the guy and I'm not the one that's going to do this, he's still like, yeah, you are. Like, and then ultimately his belief and his faith is rewarded. That's kind of the key piece of it too, is that by the end of it, when everybody else has given up, Morpheus is still like, no, it's going to be you, dude. And I love that about the character, that kind of belief, that kind of faith. And it's Fish, man. He kills it. It is unbelievable.
Yeah, what he does here is Herculean. I mean, he is the main exposition machine explaining what the Matrix is and the universe here, but he never feels like it. A lot of times a character like that hardly feels like a character because they're just walking you through like the world, but he feels like a fully realized character. He brings a certain, I mean, he's got that voice that I think becomes legendary with this role, that just has so much weight to it and importance. And whenever he's explaining something, like, you can't help but like lean forward a little bit, because the man has like an energy, an aura, as the kids might say, a certain Andrew, what's the word I'm looking for?
Je ne sais quoi. No, Chris. I believe the word you're looking for, if I may, is gravitas.
Yeah, that's it. That's the stuff. He brings the gravitas in spades. And it's incredible to me because, like, Lawrence Fishburne, Fish, what can you say? He's been in the game for decades at this point. We've got to talk about Fish a lot on this podcast.
We have.
But his first role is friggin' Apocalypse Now, and he just never stops. So he's like a known actor in this time, but not like A-list leading man blockbuster type actor. So this is still like definitely becomes his biggest role up to that point. And I just don't know if before that we knew that he had this in him, this sort of Morgan Freeman energy whenever he's monologuing, that is just so compelling. But he does that, and he plays. You mentioned the sort of zealot aspect, and it's funny. Just to back up a little bit here, I watched this movie twice getting ready for this podcast. My daughter had never seen the movie. She's 15. Perfect age to watch The Matrix for the first time. So I told her I had to watch it for the podcast and asked if she wanted to watch it with me, and she did.
Nice.
She watched it. She loved it. So I watched the 4K there. And I didn't have my phone out taking notes because I wanted to just watch it with my daughter. And earlier today, I wasn't planning on doing this. I was planning on watching The Matrix Revisited, the feature-length documentary about the making of. But instead, I saw on the disc is the most 2005 special feature. there was a I forget what they call it, but it's like you watch the movie and then like little boxes pop up of like cast interviews and director interviews and stuff about the movie. So it's not a
Pop-up
commentary
video.
because basically yes, because they're not watching the movie departing commentary. They just insert clips from interviews that are relevant to the scene you're watching. It was pretty cool, but like I said, very early Blu-ray technology to make that happen. And the interview with Lawrence Fishburne that they pull clips from, he's like on the set, I assume, of the sequels, in between like obviously doing like physical stuff because he's in like workout gear, laying on his side like Kate Winslet in Titanic. The most casual like I've ever seen Lawrence Fishburne. It's great. But one of the little tidbits he popped up and said about Morpheus was in regards to the zealot aspect. He's like, they keep telling me like, Morpheus is he's a zealot. He's very pragmatic and he's all about this prophecy and like almost to a fault. And he's like, yeah, I get the character's written that way, but I don't know. I can't help it. Every time, like one of the Wachowskis reminds me of that, I'm always like, but he is the one. but it's true. Like, even he himself has a little bit of Morpheus in him, and the fact that, like, he is just diehard, steadfast, all in on this prophecy. Something that gets explored much more in the sequels, but so I won't go farther off on it from there. But I also, another point that Lawrence Fishburne popped up on my screen and made was that he played the role very fatherly in The Matrix and masculine wise, which makes sense like how he's dressed and the action and stuff. But in the real world, it was feminine and maternal. He's like a caregiver to the crew, versus like the authoritative figure in The Matrix, which I thought was very cool.
It is.
It's just a great performance. But this is one of those movies and one of those casts where like you could throw it anywhere and I wouldn't call you crazy. I love what everyone is doing. I think for as much as people like to talk about all these people that were considered for all these different roles, they ended up with like a perfect cast. And well, Andrew, let's give some flowers to Keanu Reeves as Neo. A role that he was seemingly born to play. I mean, you can just tell from interviews and to this day how much he talks about what this movie means to him and this character and how all in he goes. We've obviously probably knew already that he has an affinity for sci-fi, but the deep dive into like philosophy this movie does, and obviously he really takes to like the martial arts aspect and doing his own stunts and being physical. He just goes all in, and it just works. It just makes sense. And this is the role that's most talked about as far as like who else was supposed to play it. Will Smith being the most famous one, who turned it down to do Wild Wild West, which is just very funny to say out loud. It's one of those things though that this movie's been so dissected and so talked about. I feel like any name that any executive threw off in a boardroom gets brought up. I mean, the Wikipedia lists Nicolas Cage, Brad Pitt, Val Kilmer, Leonardo DiCaprio, Johnny Depp. I've even read before that at one point the Wachowskis considered Brandon Lee, which makes zero sense considering he died 5 years before production. And I know this is a movie they were stewing on for a long time, but come on. That being said, that's maybe the only other actor I could see making as much sense as Keanu Reeves, of course, had he been alive. But obviously the martial arts aspect and the charisma, and we knew he looked good in leather. That would have been very cool to see, but obviously that could not come to pass. So we got Keanu Reeves. I think he nails it. We've talked about Keanu a lot on this podcast. He is just a great actor, and by all accounts, from what I know, I don't like putting celebrities on pedestals, but Andrew seems to be a good dude, which is just always good to see.
Yeah, and I just saw him on stage like
you did,
a month ago.
Yeah.
It was pretty wild. Well, it's kind of funny. You mentioned the list of people. I've always seen a giant list of people that were considered for Neo, and I've always seen a giant list of people considered for Trinity. I don't know that I've ever seen a list of people that were considered for Morpheus before. Like, I don't know if Fish was the first choice and the only one that took it, or just like I don't feel like I've ever seen them talk about like, I don't know that I've ever seen them be like, oh, these people were all up for the role of Morpheus. Like, obviously, I've heard, like, there was a while there that people thought Sean Connery was in the running for it because people say Sean Connery turned down The Matrix, but I think the story there is that he turned down the sequels to The Matrix because those were more along the time that, like, Lord of the Rings was coming and he did LXG instead. But, like, I think it's interesting that, like, for the laundry list of people that were considered for Neo and even Trinity, that list doesn't really exist for Morpheus. So I don't know if it was that it was always Fish and Fish was really the only one they sought out or what, but he is Fish. Like, what are you going to do? But yeah, he's Keanu Reeves. Like, at this point, he's got several franchises to his name. He's, and it's kind of funny because, like, people kind of doubt Keanu Reeves. They always are kind of like, oh, is he really a good actor? And I'm like, well, yeah. But, like, you've got, obviously, Bill and Ted is what blows him up. Then you've got things like Point Break. And then, obviously, The Matrix becomes this massive deal. And then, ultimately, John Wick becomes this massive deal. And that was kind of why I wanted to see him do something like Waiting for Godot, because it's so different from everything else. Like, and there's even, and there's going to be people that are like, oh, well, like, Waiting for Godot is like akin to Bill and Ted, but like not really. Like, it's a duo of characters, and obviously they're drawing on their history as Bill and Ted to play them. Alex Winter being the other one as well. But like, it's just something cool to watch and be like, oh yeah, like obviously this guy has talent. Obviously there's a tremendous here, because like obviously doing something on stage is a much rawer performance. It's one take. There's no redos. And so to see people on stage there, and I did see them it was probably, I saw there was only like 3 weeks left of the run. So they'd been doing it for a couple of months at that point. So I'm guessing they were pretty well polished, but just a joy to see Keanu Reeves in that kind of intimate setting doing something so different from all of this. But, and it's one of those things that it's probably like you can see other names and it's like, it's impossible to view anybody else in the role, but part of that is just because of how iconic Reeves' performance is. Like, if, there's something about, but like, yeah, like you think about like a Nicolas Cage or Brad Pitt or Val, like I can't imagine Val Kilmer playing this role. I just can't.
No.
I can't. Don't get me wrong. I love me some Valley Kilmers. What about my boy Valley Kilmers and Willows though? Like, I love it, but like, I can't see him doing this. And even like the Johnny Depps or the DiCaprios, like it just doesn't seem right. And even there's this note at the end that, Lorenzo de Bonaventura, who was like a high executive at Warner Brothers at the time, stated that they also sent it to Sandra Bullock with the suggestion that they could flip the role to being female. And I'm just like, it reminds me that there was a time where Sandra Bullock really was like everywhere. And people were like, she could do anything. And I'm like, and she was also apparently considered for Trinity, but she ended up turning that down as well. But it's kind of wild, the path a movie takes, and then ultimately it's like, yeah, I can't imagine anybody else doing this now.
Rounding out our Trinity is Carrie-Anne Moss as Trinity, the female lead of the movie, and she is great. Another time where it's like, no one who knew who Carrie-Anne Moss was before this, but you see her in the movie and you're like, oh, she's Trinity. Like, this is friggin' perfect. I love her throughout the series. I love her character here. And what I'm going to do, Andrew, is try to talk about a character and describe her and not use the word badass. I'm going to try to evolve beyond that. It's something that I've been guilty of, even on our very podcast. But like, I feel like anytime we see like a female actor do any kind of action on screen, we're like, oh yeah, she's a total badass. And I feel like it's a bit like an employee. It's a bit like a manager calling an employee a rock star to try to motivate him. Like, I don't think it has the right sort of messaging behind it. And I like that her character, like, is tough, is in on the action. She is, the big action set piece is her and Keanu Reeves, and she is that way throughout and does her own stunts like the rest of the main cast. But also, A very key element is the love story between her and Neo, and her literally falling in love throughout the course of the movie. And I love how many scenes you see of her reconciling behind the eyes, like her feelings and what it means. Like the weight of falling in love with this person means like the destiny of the world is involved. Like she's destined to fall in love with the one, so she loves him. That means he's the one, and that's weighing on her throughout the movie. So I love that she gets to play what you want from a romantic female lead in the relationship, but also all the other kick-ass stuff. It's very cool, and I think her moments of vulnerability are almost always have like the exclamation point of like snapping back to like, all right, let's get done. And she's really the driving force for the action in this movie as Neo tries to catch up, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of get what you mean. There's almost a code of being like, oh, it's the badass female. It's like this, like it's almost a trope, like just like if you know, for the woman character to be quote unquote worth anything, they have to be a badass, and it's just like no, they're just well written, well-rounded characters
like,
who
a lot of times we say
service the story.
We say strong female lead as a way to say, oh, she does what a man does. Oh, she can do action scenes, and we have to find a way to define women as strong, other than just they do what a man traditionally does. And something what really stuck in my head about badass is I remember we talked about Lexi Alexander, who we talked about a couple of times, director of Punisher Warzone and Green Street Hooligans. And I remember always calling her a badass because like she has like she's a martial artist and documentary filmmaker and activist, and all that stuff is great and very cool. But like, I don't know that I would use the word badass if it was a man accomplishing these things. So like in a roundabout way, I feel like even though the positivity is there, the intention is there, I just want to push myself to be a little bit more articulate about the praise for these women. So something I'm trying to work on.
No, I agree. And but like, you know, it's a little bit of the Joss Whedon influence still being there, but like, you know, Joss Whedon for the longest time was like one of the go-to people that people would point to and be like, this is a guy who writes strong female characters. But all that really boiled down to was that they basically were just, they can fight and beat people up. And it's like, well, that's not exactly what that means. Like
this is this is terrible to talk about because like Joss Whedon had a quote that was used a lot and I thought was pretty impactful at the time, where he's asked in an interview why he writes strong female characters, and his response was, because you keep asking me that question. Which is great. It's a great response. But like, that's not the person I want to talk about now when I talk about strong female leads, because of everything we know about the guy. And the other person I think of is Neil Gaiman, who wrote a very compelling article about strong female leads, and a lot of where I initially got that we think of strong female leads only when a woman does what a man does, and perhaps it should be deeper than that. And that man should not be talked about when we talk about empowering women. So I don't know. Maybe I should just stop turning to men for this. Maybe that's the answer.
There's a comedian whose name is Larry Miller. I don't know if you're familiar with him. You might know him from like, he acted in a lot of stuff, but he played the dad in 10 Things I Hate About You. Like their dad.
Okay, yeah.
So, and he showed up in a bunch of places. He does very famous episode of Seinfeld. He played the doorman. He's in an episode of Aqua Teen Hunger Force that I think is absolutely hysterical. But he has a bit that he did, and this was back in like the 80s or the 90s. And he was talking about like men versus women. And there's a little bit of his comedy that's a little bit of like a little bit of a boomer-esque knowledge there. But he had this really bit that I thought was really funny, because he talks about men versus women, and he mentions he's like his argument essentially boils down to that women are stronger than men. And he's like, and I know what some of you guys are going to say, well, the average man could beat the average woman in an arm wrestling contest. And he's like, first off, so what? But secondly, that's not strength, that's force. He's like, let me tell you about strength. And he lists all the things that, like, at the time, like a stay-at-home mom would be responsible for, which was like all of the kids' stuff, all of the house stuff, all of the bills, all of the payments, all of the repairs, all of the everything. And, it's like, and then you've got to, send out the letters. You've got to call the relative, like this whole list of items that is this insane workload of tasks. And then it's like, and then by comparison, my father can sit in the recliner with the TV on while sleeping. And like the whole joke was just basically that like this idea of strength as being men are physically stronger than women, therefore they're stronger than women, is just nonsense. Because even the things that are quote unquote maternal or feminine, or the things that you would associate being like a stay-at-home mom, like those are hard things that require strength to do, even if it's not necessarily physical strength. And so it's always been this odd thing that's definitely I blame the internet for it, honestly, but just like this kind of push that like, oh, if the female character is going to be worthwhile, she basically has to do what men do. And I'm like, well, and even then they still get mad when that's the case. Like you look at something like Captain Marvel or something like that, like, Captain Marvel is basically Superman and everybody hates Brie Larson, so it's bad. And it's like, it's no winning. It's almost like it's a no-win situation for female characters, because nerds can be the worst. But it's a tough thing to have a conversation about, especially, like you said, when it's complicated by the fact that a lot of people you would have pointed to and looked at as kind of these and the other thing that Gaiman and Whedon kind of also did is they kind of were like, we don't like that we as men have to tell these stories, but you also won't like give women a chance to tell these stories. So we're going to do whatever we can to help that. And then you find out that they're these monstrous people who use their positions of power for the exploitation of others. And you're just kind of like, oh, so it was all for clout. Which of course damaged the movement entirely by suggesting that the people that are on that side are it's a giant mess. And I hope both of them have nothing but bad times ahead of them. But it's so when you look at a character like Trinity, that's obviously written by the Wachowskis with a lot of care and a lot of thought, because I think the character does thread a lot of lines. There's obviously, she gets in on the action, which, is a lot of people's just baseline for like badass female. But there's emotion to this character. There's empathy to this character. There are plenty of things that are quote unquote not badass that are still part of this character that all inform her role in the story. And I think that makes the character extremely compelling. This is another one of like my very close Mark Strongs, because I think Carrie-Anne Moss is giving a very similar level of performance to Lawrence Fishburne in the sense of like her faith in Neo throughout this movie and trying to reconcile that with like her own emotions and things like that. I think it's a tremendously compelling performance that threads that line of being essentially all things. And Carrie-Anne Moss deserves an immense amount of credit for doing that. If only It's Moss sounded as good as It's Fish, that would probably have been, that would probably sealed it for me. It's Moss, what are you gonna do? But it's just a tremendous performance. And it's a tremendous character, to be very clear. Like, like obviously, a lot of the focus of these, you hear about Morpheus and Neo a lot, but like Trinity is just as important as a character, and that's in no small part due to Carrie-Anne Moss and her portrayal of it.
I want to tell you about Kale Your Idols, a new Hollywood podcast.
You might not know this, but the 70s are often considered the greatest decade in film history.
No, they know this. Everybody listening already knows about this.
Well, just in case they don't, this is the decade of The Godfather, Star Wars, Jaws, The Exorcist.
Dog Day Afternoon, Killer of Sheep, Shampoo. Are these movies over-discussed? Perhaps, but we're the only podcast that's doing a deep dive into this era.
Again, we're called Kale Your Idols. That's Kale as in Kael, named after the iconic film critic Pauline Kael.
Maybe these movies are extremely familiar to you.
Or maybe you haven't seen any 70s films.
Either way, check out Kale Your Idols.
Kael.
Are you sure we shouldn't change the name?
Of course, Hugo Weaving plays Agent Smith. I've said it many a times. Agent Smith, my all-time favorite villain in films. I am certain this man picked up a Mark Strong award at some point. possible to check. No way to know. But come on, as much as I love this guy in this performance, I know I gave it to him for one of the sequels. I could have gone here. I mean, I could have gone with a lot of these leads. I love what he's doing here. He just obviously gets to, come unhinged, come off the leash even more as the series progresses. But there's a lot of sort of hints and clues of what's to come in this movie that's so fun to go back and watch. If I could pull back a little bit, I'm watching this movie and I'm thinking about how it became such a phenomenon and so influential on films to come and on style. And then I think about what it must have been like to be on set and not knowing that this stuff was going to work. I was reminded a lot of Star Wars. I think there's a lot of parallels for a lot of different reasons, but you hear a lot of stories about people working on Star Wars thinking this is going to flop. This is just B-movie garbage. This is just a stepping stone in my career kind of thing. Then it becomes a phenomenon because you're on set in a world where Star Wars doesn't exist, where this stuff isn't iconic, and you're just wearing rags on a dirty ship and saying words and, that have no real world application. It's hard to see the big picture. And I've got to feel during some scenes we were kind of getting that. These dressing head to toe in leather and these trench coats become so iconic afterwards. But if you were to be walking on the street and see someone dressed like that, they would look ridiculous. It doesn't look cool out of context. Wearing sunglasses all the time, even inside, it's going to read differently in the final product than it must have on set. That's all to say I'm fascinated by Hugo Weaving's choice on how to speak in this movie. It's so iconic and so cool, but on set, especially since the guy has is he Australian or New Zealand? Where is he from? He's from somewhere. He has an accent that you don't hear here. And just the choice that he makes, he's not a robot, even though his character is a machine, is a program, but he doesn't sound like he's just being a robot, but it is a little lifeless one, but it's also very charismatic and fun and almost playful, and just the words that he chooses to linger on, I love it. It's another one of those instances where I'm watching the movie and during the interrogation scene with Neo, there's a little pop-up of Hugo Weaving talking about the voice and saying that he wanted it to be machine-like, but he settled on a 50s news anchor kind of thing, which I can kind of hear after he says it, but it still sounds really unique to me. And then immediately after that, the box pops up again with Lawrence Fishburne again laying down on his side, all casual, and he just goes, "It's Walter Cronkite. He's Walter Cronkite." And that's all he has to say about it. And that's the way it was. But however he landed there, what the influence is, I love the finished product. I love this character. We'll be talking much more about him as we get to scenes, but I've praised the man a ton for this role specifically over the course of our show, and I love it.
I agree. I think this is a tremendous performance, and I think, you mentioned the kind of emphasis that he puts on things, just that is the sound of inevitability. Just the way he pronounces things, and it's interesting too. There's I keep coming back to the word faith. And obviously he doesn't really have faith in things because he's a program, but the nuance they give the character of he's this program that's bored of being a program, essentially. He's basically bored of being a subroutine, for lack of a better way to put it.
Yeah.
And that personal frustration ultimately is pushing him slightly divergent from the path that he's supposed to be on. So he's this villain that gets this weird piece that even is going against, you presume Agent Smith is working on behalf of, quote unquote, the Matrix. And eventually you realize that he's kind of working on his own side. And he's got this strong belief in that, he needs to be free of this. And he sees kind of Neo as the key to that. And it's just a tremendously layered performance. And yeah, I guess Walter Cronkite it's if you're gonna take inspiration from something, but it's a really, really great performance. This is another one of the Mark Strong, or if you said Hugo Weaving was the Mark Strong Award winner of The Matrix, I'm not going to fight you on that at all. I'm not going to fight you on picking any of the big four, I guess, as the main players here, but they're all tremendous performances. And Hugo Weaving, a movie is only as good as its villain, and he makes sure that the one here is memorable. And like you said, it's for some, he's one of the greatest on-screen villains of all time, if not the greatest. Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now is up there, but it's pretty good.
Joe Pantoliano, Joey Pants himself, alum of the show, not from the Matrix movies because he doesn't come back, but
good.
We talked about Daredevil, and we've talked about Congo. We've talked about him a number of times, and he's great. He plays Cypher. I love this role. I love Joey Pants. I mean, like, one of the consummate character actors. You can throw him in anything, good guy, bad guy. He's gonna live up to it. But here, he's so smarmy. I mean, the steak scene, we'll get to it. It's just outstanding. Honestly, add this to the list of, like, if you said he was the Mark Strong Award, I don't think that's crazy. He hams it up. It's funny. It's impossible to go back and like watch this movie with fresh eyes as if I'd never seen it before. But watching it now, you're introduced to the main cast, and it's like, yeah, that's the bad guy, that's the traitor. Mouse, he's gonna die. Like, it seems like so obvious, like with the casting, what's gonna happen. Not in a bad way, but he plays this role to perfection. Someone that's just disillusioned with reality in a very different way than Thomas Anderson in the beginning of this movie. He's disillusioned with the actual reality, the real world. And I think a fun thing about it is that, like, I don't know if relate's the right word. I can understand, though. Like, I can look at this world and be like, yeah, that does seem like it would kind of suck. And I could understand being like, plug me back in if I don't know. I mean, he says it. Ignorance is bliss. Like, I get it. I don't condone what he does to try to get what he wants, to be clear. But
I'm just saying I get it.
I'm just saying I get it. I understand the disillusionment. And Joey Pants, what a guy.
Yeah, this is a great performance. Like, it's, it's one of those things that, like, not to harp on Whedon again, but he often defends his script to Alien Resurrection by saying that the script is perfect, everything else is wrong. He highlights the casting, he highlights the direction, and conveniently leaves out the fact that he's a garbage person. But it's the point to that simply being that, just like, yeah, I know Joey Pants is going to betray this team, but it doesn't hurt the movie. I know that there's a lot of expendable members of this crew. It doesn't hurt the movie. Like, there's a way to tell your story. Like, it's kind of like with wrestling. Wrestling fans always talk about how they're like, oh, They talk about how wrestling can be so predictable at times. And it's like, generally speaking, a storyline in wrestling should have a logical ending. Like, there is no other ending for WrestleMania 30 except Daniel Bryan winning.
Yeah.
Daniel Bryan winning at the end of WrestleMania 30 is not a surprise, but it's one of the best moments of recent. We're 12 years ago now. It's kind of wild that, that there's this stress on, like, unpredictability. Like, things need to be unpredictable. Wrestling is better when it's unpredictable. And I'm like, well, no, not really, because then you just get shock stuff happening to shock you. And that's not really great either. There's room for that, obviously, in all forms of storytelling. But
it shouldn't stop you from enjoying the ride. Like, when Triple H comes out during the match, you still go, oh, but he's going to screw it up. He's going to, like, you still get into it.
Believe. You still get, you get worked. And you know what? It's amazing that wrestling fans, like, getting worked is part of it. You want to get worked. You want to believe. And it's so amazing to me that there's wrestling fans that just want to sit back and be like, no, man, they never had me. And it's like, that sounds horrible. It sounds horrible that you watch wrestling and you're just detached the whole time and you're never invested. Like,
and you can pull back to all of storytelling. You read a book, you watch a movie, the good guy's gonna win. I mean, that's true 99% of the time. There's always an exception to the rule, and usually there's a sequel, the good guy ends up winning anyway. But, like, the good guy's gonna win. You can assume that in just about every story you watch. And still enjoy it. And, like, still enjoy the story. So, yeah, something being maybe obvious or predictable isn't inherently bad. Maybe if it's telegraphed, we might start getting into problems, or the movie tries to hide it when it's like, yeah, there's good ways and bad ways to do any kind of form of storytelling. But
I will say that when a movie tries to hide something that is very clearly obvious, then that's just a failure of storytelling. That's a different problem. But, like, you know, for a movie like this, it's never trying to convince you that Cypher is not going to turn on the team. There's maybe one or two moments that prolong the turn a little bit, but, like, the movie's never trying to make you be like, yeah, this guy is noble. Like, the seeds are there the whole time. Like, you know, he even says it, just like,
why didn't I take the blue pill?
The blue pill. Yeah. Like, it's right there. He telegraphs what he's going to do right in that moment. But that's called foreshadowing. It's kind of like Patrick Willems has a video about Alien Covenant, and spoilers for Alien Covenant, folks. The end of that movie reveals that the good Michael Fassbender has been secretly replaced by the bad Michael Fassbender. And there were a lot of people that were like, well, duh, that was obvious. And he's like, well, yeah, it wasn't supposed to not be obvious. Like, you're mad that the thing that was definitely going to happen happened. Like, why? You never were supposed to think that wasn't the case. It's not a twist that the Michael Fassbenders switched. It's a confirmation of what you already suspected. And those are, it's another thing that starts to veer into the, you don't like it for being bad, you don't like it for not doing what you wanted it to do.
Right.
Which is a whole different debate. But, like, Joey Pants being the villain here is telegraphed, it's foreshadowed, it's set up. When it happens, it's inevitability. But it still works. That's the thing. The storytelling of the movie sets it up and it makes it have impact. He wipes out pretty much the entirety of the team except for Tank, Morpheus, Trinity, and Neo. I mean, he literally takes him down to a skeleton crew. And it's just good storytelling. And this is made inevitably better by Joey Pants. Joey Pants is great in everything he's in. Obviously, we've talked about him multiple times before, but he is great. He's always a joy in the Bad Boys movies. He's a joy everywhere. I like him a lot in Daredevil, playing the character there. I think he plays Ben Urich, and I like that character. Just kind of the Daredevil beat reporter who's kind of like, something weird about this Daredevil. But he's great, and he's great in this movie. Like, you talk about a movie being the sum of its parts, and obviously Agent Smith is meant to be the big bad of this movie, but Joe Pantoliano as the sub-villain, the real-world villain, if you will, is perfect. He does the job perfectly. Obviously, we get a little bit more direct shades of this later, where there basically is just a real-world version of Smith and a Matrix version of Smith in some of the later films. But here, he's the perfect person to play that the real-world villain, and he's fantastic at it. The monologue he's giving when he's just, like, slowly disconnecting everybody and talking about all, like, it's just like, that had to be like a joy to film, because it's basically just him monologuing to a bunch of actors pretending to be asleep.
That's one of those moments, like, to be on set, to be a fly on the wall. Whenever he leaps onto Lawrence Fishburne, I'm like, how did you stay in the moment there?
Yeah, like, could you guys just legit knock me out? It's the only way I'm not going to laugh when he does this. But like, I've always thought scenes like that have to be a blast, where you just literally get to just, like, just chewing the scenery. And
yeah,
he chews scenery pretty good.
All right, let's run out the rest of the team. Marcus Chong plays Tank. He's the operator on the Nebuchadnezzar, and he was born in Zion. He was not unplugged from the Matrix. He's a real boy. I really like this performance, and he's so charismatic and so fun. Later we get Link in this role, and he is also charismatic and fun, has a lot of the same qualities. I've always thought it was strange he doesn't come back. I'm always fascinated by this. like Katie Holmes not returning for The Dark Knight, which I think was just her decision. Or we have like I'm so bad with names.
Terrence
Andrew.
Howard not returning for Iron Man.
Thank you. That's exactly, this just read my mind. Terrence Howard, which was like a pay dispute that actually I support him in, but also the guy's kind of off the rails, so I'm not going to fight too hard.
Terrence Howard is an excellent example of multiple things can be true at once.
Yeah, yeah.
It is a situation where when you read like the fine print of it, yeah, financially, all of that, he definitely got the shaft. But there's also something about him and his behavior that can also not really be ignored either.
Yeah, I know less about Marcus Chong and his situation, but it's very similar. Where as a pay dispute as far as what they were offering him to return, which usually on the side with the actor there, but like he has like released homemade documentaries on YouTube about it, which I haven't watched, but like he seems to really target his anger towards the Wachowskis specifically, and gone kind of really hard with like the threats and hate speech. And
I mean, he got arrested. He got arrested. Like, to be clear, like he got arrested in 2000 for making phone calls to the filmmakers. It sounds like there was the way he describes it, and I'm not by any means saying that this is accurate, is that there was a verbal agreement and a contract for The Matrix that included the sequels. He believes that the amounts he was offered for the sequels was half of what he was supposed to get, and it didn't include any bonuses or guarantees, invites to press junkets or premieres. Supposedly the Wachowskis rejected that, so that's when he kind of ramped up his behavior, ended up getting arrested because of that. And it's one of those things where, like, if what he says is true, and he was like, with the thing said I should have gotten $500,000 and they offered me $250,000, yeah, in that case, I'm going to side with him, especially after the success of the first movie. But if your response to that is to then threaten and harass people, I'm not going to support you there. Like, I can't do that. Like, that's not, especially
multiple things
like,
can be
true at once,
and
it's unfortunate.
But I really like his performance. Whenever he's like the scene where he's like, "If it's true, if you are the one, exciting times." I love it. It's very infectious. And hashtag PP, I guess. Something that's always bothered me, not in any significant way, but whenever Neo is learning kung fu, he says, "Hey, Mikey, I think he likes it." Okay, how would someone born in Zion that's never plugged into the Matrix be able to reference an 80s cereal commercial?
Same way that orcs in Lord of the Rings know what a restaurant is.
Is that a thing? I don't know.
They say looks like meat's back on the menu, boys. Why do they know what a menu is?
Huh. Yeah, I think they say hell at some point in Star Wars. People like to bring that up too. Christianity exists in Star Wars or something.
Did you know Marcus Chong is the adopted son of Tommy Chong?
I did not know that.
He is.
TIO.
Yeah, I don't know why, because he was apparently adopted in 1978, which is like after Cheech and Chong. It's like during the peak of their popularity. Just seems very odd, but I don't know. So 78, Marcus would have been 11. So I don't know. Anyway, TIL.
His older brother Dozer in the movie. Another thing I never put together. The real people have names Tank and Dozer. I get why everyone else has a fun name because it's their hacker alias, but the real human people are named Tank and Dozer, which isn't, it's possible, but I think that's kind of interesting. Anyway, Dozer, played by Anthony Ray Parker. He's the older brother and seems like a gentle giant kind of guy. It's the energy I get. But his big scene is his death scene. Dude gets fried in the scene we're talking about earlier. And it's sad, Andrew.
Yeah. It's very sad. But yeah, say it's it is a very limited performance to a degree. Anthony Ray Parker, not a whole lot of credits to his lot of minor television stuff in the Hercules Xena universe over the course of the mid to late 90s. Some voices on different seasons of Power Rangers, voicing monsters. And just a pretty limited career ultimately. But the role here, it's like I said, they make it impactful. The relationship between Tank and Dozer plays very well as the weight of when Dozer is killed by Cypher. And yeah, I didn't say this about Marcus Chong, but like the catharsis in the moment where he kills Cypher is quite satisfying.
Yeah. All right. And Julian Arahanga plays APOC. Now, everyone on the crew has like their one key scene except APOC. There's no real like moment for the guy. He's another one that gets killed by Cypher. But he's got a cool look, like they all do. He's always with Switch. Knows like fan theories that they were an item. Who knows? Maybe that's part of the backstory. But he's just another guy in the crew that looks cool. This is definitely the biggest thing in his career that he did. Andrew, anything to say about APOC and the Man Bun?
He is in this movie.
He's in this movie. Matt Duran plays Mouse. I love this guy. He's the little... I almost described him as squirrely, but that's not accurate. He's mousy. He's little, hyperactive. He's very excited about designing the woman in red. And then you only get to see him in The Matrix once, but you get to see like his cool look. And dude goes out like a boss. Which that's probably his big key scene. Him like opening that crate, pulling out those 2 Gatling guns, going down in a blaze of glory. I love it. Andrew, anything to say about Matt Duran as Mouse?
Everything you just said.
Okay, now I saved the best for last. Belinda McClory plays Switch. I've always loved this character. I love that she wears white, but everyone else wears black. The original concept for the character Switch, the reason they're called Switch, is that they were going to be played by a male actor in the real world and a female in The Matrix, which is an idea that was ultimately put the kibosh by the studio. I've also heard like it's for the Wachowskis decided against it eventually. I'm not sure where the truth is. I can kind of see the studio being like, it's a little too much, but also I think there's a practicality standpoint where it might be confusing for the audience to know that these 2 different actors are playing the same person. I don't know. I can see it working. I can see it kind of being a mess, but I like the concept.
I could see it also being less like a logistical thing. Like you're not seeing enough of the character and ever play. And
yes, yeah.
There's so limited screen time for the characters as is. I could see it being something where they were like, just make it a very stark contrast between the attires and everything. Like everybody like kind of play it up in certain ways, but like it's. I don't necessarily think there is malice involved in the change.
Sure.
Is I guess kind of what I would say. I don't necessarily think this is something where like we were trying to do this kind of edgy thing and they said no, but it might have been. I don't know, but I could see there being a lot of things that ultimately informed that decision.
Now, Andrew, The Matrix is rated R,
Indeed.
Which I think is kind of interesting because there's no F-bombs, there's no nudity, there's not really any sex. There's
Neo
some
does
blood.
Neo does flip Smith the bird at one point.
There's a finger. But you know what there is, Andrew? There is Switch wearing a see-through top. We can kind of see her nipples through it. And if that's the sole reason this movie got an R rating, worth it, I say, worth it for 10-year-old me. This is very formative character for me. We were talking about Entrapment and The Mummy coming out the same year. What a year for young boys and girls discovering things about themselves. I've said on my oddly a number of times on this podcast that I don't know, women playing like these androgynous characters, shout out Tilda Swinton in Constantine, always catches my attention. This might be the first one to do it. This might have started a long line of things for me that ultimately has led to my love of Rhea Ripley. But
I just assumed that was because she could carry you like a baby, but
it's part of it. Look, Switch can carry me too. Switch can pull a gun on me and tell me to our way or the highway. Like I love this character. Her key scene, if I had to say one, it is the line delivery of "not like this." Not like this, which has like this accent out of nowhere that she didn't have throughout the other movie, but whatever. The character is very cool, and even though they didn't do the switching genders thing, it's clearly an androgynous character, and there's a lot being said there without being said out loud. And then, of course, you pull back even farther, the Wachowskis would go on to both transition after this movie, and kind of people start to notice and ask them questions about like, hey, there's a lot of themes in the Matrix about fighting the role society gives you and breaking free and claiming your true identity and your true name. Like, Agent Smith literally dead names Neo as a way to antagonize him throughout the series. And the Wachowskis like, yeah, it's pretty obvious looking back, the kind of things that we were like working through. So yeah, no surprise that a character like Switch here exists, or that they have such a knack for writing female characters.
Yeah, turns out there's a lot of layers here, and it's been something that like there's obviously been criticism over it. People are like, "Oh, why can't the Matrix just be the Matrix? Why does it have to suddenly?" And it's just like, guys, art is political. Not all art is political, but like people. So art is also, I guess, on a more specific level, personal, and that the things that are important to you have a tendency to show up in your work. And so if these are things that are important to people, they're going to show up. And it's so funny to me that people get so kind of annoyed about it, because even if you don't know that and know these deeper levels, it doesn't impact watching the movie at all. Like, the movie functions with an understanding of the beneath the surface stuff involving trans people or not. It doesn't matter. But for the people that are trans and are sensitive to those issues and are looking for things that help them identify things within themselves, these things are important. And we've all, representation's always been, it's become a hot button discussion because people have turned on to this idea of, just seeing just general diversity as being woke. And I know there's a lot of people that talk about that, and it's just in bad faith. They have no desire to have a good faith conversation about it. They just have decided that the inclusion of diversity means you are taking something away from white people. That's what they've decided it means, even though that's incorrect. But I know for some of these people, they just don't get it. They just don't understand what representation means because they've never not seen themselves on screen. They've never not been able to watch a movie. Like I talk to people about this, and it's like, yeah, growing up in the 50s, if you were a white kid, you were everywhere. Like, every Western hero is a white guy. So you're seeing yourself everywhere. So you have no frame of reference for what it's like to not see yourself. And I've mentioned this story before, and it's one of those things that gets forgotten. But when Ron Simmons wins the WCW championship off of Vader in 92, like, he hits him with a power slam and he goes in for the cover. And you see this African-American kid run to the guardrail, and he is jumping up like crazy because Ron Simmons has won the championship. And I can't imagine seeing something like that and your takeaway being, wow, this sucks for white people. Like, that just sounds about as boneheaded as possible. Like, it's the most ill-faith, brain-dead reading of that situation you could have. But I see it all the time. This idea that if someone else gets a seat at the table, it means that your space at the table gets smaller. And it's like, no, just build a bigger table, man. There's plenty of room.
And, okay, good point about, genuinely, it's probably hard for white people to understand the importance of representation because they themselves have never had to worry about it. And I think if you struggle with understanding the importance of it and you're white, like examine that. And no shade. Like I get it. But that scenario, if you believe that black representation takes away from white representation, and that bothers you, then you understand representation. Then if you're saying that you see yourself in the quote unquote white people that are quote unquote losing opportunities, and that bothers you, then you're there. You just put it all together.
The problem is that there is no loss of white representation, so it's still rooted in something that is ill-advised or misguided. This idea that like, oh, but it's like, it's the same thing that happened with Ghost. I'm just hitting all the hot button topics today. It's like Ghostbusters 16. A lot of people were like, oh, it's all women. Why is it got to be why is it an agenda? And it's like, okay, well, like, was the 4 men in 84 Ghostbusters an agenda? And they're like, well, no, that was just the story. It's like, okay, so like, why is this in it? Like, why is 4 women an agenda, but 4 men is just normal? That's something you need to examine about yourself for why you see 4 women as Ghostbusters. And it has to be an agenda. Or like when Dwayne McDuffie wrote Justice League, it was a diverse lineup. And a lot of people were like, oh, this has to be mandated. This has to be a quota. And it's like, what fictional superhero is losing their job because Dwayne McDuffie is writing a diverse Justice League? No one. Just don't read it, man. It's easy. God, gall.
Andrew, I'm giving you snaps, as the Gen Z like to do. One last cast member I want to talk about here. Gloria Foster as the Oracle. We've talked about her before in this very role. She reprises it in the second movie, sadly passes away during production, and she's replaced for the third movie by, what is that character's name? Mary Alice in the third film, who is also great. Oh man, I love the Oracle. She has one scene in the movie. Like, I always forget that. Like, you see her once. I think... top of my head, does she only have one scene in the second movie too? She makes such an impression with one scene, is the point I want to make here. Her presence, her grandma energy, she's literally baking cookies, and I love how she smokes, which is the character in the Oracle. It's just a funny thing to do. The line delivery that, like, I'm not an elder black woman, so I won't be able to replicate it. An elder black smoker, I should say. But when he's like, sorry about the vase, and she goes, oh, it's really going to bake your noodle later on, is if you would have done, I'm laughing at how bad this is. Her line delivery on that, yeah. Would you have broke it if I never said anything? Is just absolutely perfect. I love that she says the line, no one can tell you you're in love, you just feel it. Balls to bones. Falls to bones. It's great. God. She's wonderful. Yeah. R.I.P.
Yeah, it's possibly the best one scene performance in a film. There's plenty of great one scene performances, but it's pretty good. It's up there.
It's up there. All right, Andrew, the time has come. Let's talk about the scenes of the film.
2 hours in, we're finally going to talk about the scenes. Excellent.
Let's talk about some scenes for the next 2 hours. All right, Andrew. And let's just, what we're going to do? We're going to start at the top, the high point. The best scene of the movie, or at least our personal favorite. So, Andrew, in your opinion, when is this movie firing on all cylinders? And what is the best scene of The Matrix?
To me, it's the reveal of the one. Like that to me, it's the whole movie is building towards it. Obviously we've mentioned plenty of scenes, but like the to this moment, it's probably the one moment in the movie where I'm just like, oh, like there's the briefest of moments where I get worked. I'm just like, oh man, like is this? Are we losing? Like, is this what's gonna happen? But it kind of starts when Smith kills Neo. The machines are attacking the Nebuchadnezzar. So Trinity has this moment where like she's talking to Neo, who's at this point dead, supposedly. Wrong. But she reveals that like the Oracle basically told her that she was going to fall in love with the One, which you realize provides all this additional context to the conflict that she's been feeling about this movie because she knows what the One is supposed to do, et cetera, et cetera. Chris, did you know that Neo and the One have the same letters?
it's a is that anagram? Is that the right
anagram?
word?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
Should
There
probably
is
fact check that.
there's a POD music video that they did for the second movie. I can't remember the name of the song, but the music video is Matrix related. And at one point, the lead singer, I think Sonny's lead singer of POD, he's like being like tested like in a lab, and he's like sitting at a table and he holds his hand out and there's like children's blocks on the table that say Neo, and he uses his mind to rearrange them to one. By 2002, I feel like we all knew it. It just felt like, yeah, we know, we get it.
Yeah,
Like,
we
it
get
just
it,
felt
we get it,
very corny to me. But yeah,
Chris, are you implying that POD might be kind of corny?
a little corny. Yeah,
I thought
I'm
that
a
was
fan.
obvious.
I like it, but
I'm a fan. It's kind of corny, but I'm a fan.
do you remember when they did the music video for a song just called "Boom"? Here comes the boom. Anyway, they're playing ping pong in the music video.
Yes, I do remember this. Back when effort was made in music videos.
Yeah.
But anyway, she basically reveals that the Oracle prophesied she would fall in love with the One. So Neo returns to life on Easter weekend, and basically he's now in his final form. He can perceive and manipulate the code of the Matrix. He destroys Smith unbelievably easily at this point, and he escapes the Matrix just as they blast apart all the Sentinels and everything. And it's a supreme moment of catharsis, because in that moment you're just like, oh, Smith isn't you can't overcome Smith. Even the One can't beat Smith. And obviously Smith gets a whole new face, in some ways more than one in the sequels, but in that moment, just seeing Smith finally defeated and see his plans finally go awry and the good guys win, such as they were, I think it's a very impactful moment. The whole movie is building towards it, so there's a weight to it when it finally happens that I cannot deny.
It's good. It's great, even, Andrew. Yeah, I love the shock of him getting shot. Like, you see him fall down dead. And what happens next? Like, Trinity explaining what the Oracle told her, admitting that she loves him, she's not scared anymore, and kissing him, and he comes back to life. We have, like, 4 layers all stacked on top of each other of, like, what's happening here. Like, so much of this movie is just like classic storytelling elements, whether it's the hero's journey or stuff from philosophy and stuff from religion. So we have like the resurrection aspect. Neo is the savior of mankind. This was prophesied to do. He dies and comes back, much like Jesus and plenty of other messiahs in history. We also have like true love's kiss, resurrecting him. Like, the Wachowskis are very sentimental and emotional, and that works its way into all of their work, and the sweetness of like, it's her love that brings him back is very nice and a nice idea. In my pop-up video watch, one of the Wachowskis, I've never known which one is which, name-wise, before and after transitioning. I just always call them the Wachowskis. So one of the Wachowskis in the pop-up video is talking about that moment and saying that like the character was, it's 2 people. It's Neo and Thomas Anderson. And Neo can't take his final form until he's like the sole person occupying the being. I'm butchering a little bit of what he said, I guess, but he did speak in this strange way. But they say that whenever Agent Smith shoots him, Agent Smith kills Thomas Anderson, and now Neo can take on his final form by being the sole occupant of this character, which is, I think I kind of got that on some level, but it was kind of cool hearing that explained that way, like the death of Thomas Anderson, so he can finally truly become Neo. I like that reading, or meaning interpretation. But yeah, it's a great moment, and then we get this. The end of this movie gets me like so hyped, because like Neo becomes like a superhero. Like he he stops the bullets in the hallway. That is so wild. And I love a movie that tells you exactly, it calls it shot like this. I mean, they say it like halfway in the movie. You're telling me I can dodge bullets? I'm telling you, when the time comes, you won't have to. And that's like cryptic and cool. And what does that mean? It means you can hold his hand up and stop bullets. Like, they tell you exactly what's going to happen, but when the moment happens, it's still awesome. Every little decision Keanu makes here is burned into my memory. Like him picking up the bullet and like looking at it and then looking at the others and tilting his head down so they all fall. Or whenever he's fighting Agent Smith with one arm and not even like looking at him. And then he gives him the big kick and he keeps his leg in the air and slowly moves it to the side and puts it down. Like, he is like ascended to like a new being. And like, he's so calm throughout and like peaceful. His demeanor's changed. It's awesome. And he dives into Smith, destroys Smith. The two other agents run away, which is such a fun inverse. And like, it's insane that he reaches this point and like we are like 30 seconds from like credits hitting. Like, he flies towards the screen, the movie ends, and you're like, what? Like, he can do anything, and like the movie's over. And of course, you know, we get to explore it later. But like, I remember like when the second movie's coming out, it's like, oh, how is Neo gonna be challenged? Like, he's all powerful. And they find fun ways to make it happen. But it's such a God, it's such a hype moment at the end of this. So I love this pick. I mean, it's what I would consider the emotional climax of the movie for sure. It's all the threads coming together and a perfect end to the film, Andrew. So I say a good pick for best scene.
Cool. Thank you.
I'm going to rewind a little bit. And I mean, I love this whole movie. There's so much I could pick, but I'm going to go with the action climax of the movie. I'm going to get real greedy here and just say it's the entire Morpheus save. Everything that happens in that building, from the shootout in the lobby to Morpheus getting interrogated to the helicopter save, the big bullet time sequence. Man, this stuff is so cool. Now, the main reason I'm picking this is the Agent Smith and Morpheus interrogation, but that is spaced out among several scenes intercut with all the action. So I'm just going to take it all. But I'll start with that interrogation, which, by the way, I learned today. I mean, I've seen all these special features before. I guess I knew it on some level, but I was maybe reminded today that the room where they're doing interrogation is a set. It's a 4-story set. So it's elevated off the ground in this huge studio, and that skyline is a wallpaper. I mean, it's probably not technically a wallpaper, but it's printed on a giant board, which is wild. Like, this looks like they're in a skyrise. Hugo Weaving a little pop-up videos is like, you forget you're on a set because this looks like you're looking over this giant city, which I will maintain that this movie was, or I should, like, 1999 is like the, you know what? I'm not going to stop myself from being hyperbolic. I'm going to say it, Andrew. This is the peak of filmmaking. This is my favorite era of filmmaking because you have like all the tools that we've had the past 100 years of making movies happening here. Real people building real sets and putting real thought into everything. And then, like, the emerging CG and computers are used as a tool to push us farther and make new things happen, but haven't completely taken over. This is one of those scenes that if you did it now that would be a CG city outside the window, which is not anything inherently wrong with that. But the more you take away from like the handcraft, the more sterile everything films. And I love how tactile so much of this movie feels, especially the lobby, which I'll get to in 30 minutes. Let me keep on rambling here. Agent Smith, this scene is so key for the character because I remember initially, like when Agent Smith comes back for the sequels, I was like, look, I love Hugo Weaving, but the character was destroyed. Like, are they just looking for an excuse to use the actor some more? But this scene really unlocks that there's something more going on with this program. And you touched on it earlier, Andrew. You were talking about how he is bored with his role. And he has this disdain for having to exist in the Matrix and this disdain for humanity, and he wants to break free, which is what he does. Neo accidentally helps him with that at the end of the movie, but like something is different about this program. So I think the key is here that he takes the earpiece out, he disconnects from the other agents, and in his speech about how humanity is actually a virus and he hates the stench of this place, and he wipes the sweat off of Morpheus and shoves it in his nose. It's, God, it's good actor right there, Andrew. Yeah. It's showing you that like something's not right with this program. This is an anomaly. This isn't how he's supposed to behave. And when the other agent walks in, it's like, what were you doing? Like, it's clear that like he's behaving abnormally.
He's off book at this point. Like he's
gone off book.
Like,
yeah,
he takes the earpiece out. Like the like this is another kind of one, like, you know, similar to the Joey Pants monologue where he gets to just kind of monologue at the sleeping actors. This is basically just like Morpheus like tripped out of his mind, and Smith is like screaming at his face. He's degrading him. He's putting him down because Smith, oddly, this is something I don't know that I necessarily get to say, he's jealous of this. He doesn't want to be stuck in this anymore. He wants to be free and he wants to be out. So it's this kind of ultimate flip of the scenario where like the humans are the ones that have, you know, like Cypher is the one who's so desperate to not know what it's like outside of the Matrix. He would rather live in bliss inside the Matrix. Whereas Smith is the opposite. He's so disillusioned with being a program within the Matrix that he's jealous of the fact that they don't have to be in the Matrix. And it's just tremendous. Yeah,
that's an excellent read. I've never factored in jealousy. He has an obvious disdain for humans, and it's obviously personal, which is very weird because he's a program. That's the anomaly part. Like, it's kind of personal. But yeah, the fact that underneath all that is jealousy because they get to unplug from the Matrix. They've escaped, learned the truth, and he can't. That is fantastic. Great.
That may be wrong. That's definitely Andrew, a layer to the sequence that I've seen.
There's no wrong way to read art, buddy. But also there's an action element here. There is the lobby scene, which, damn, this is cool. And it's interesting to me because like, this becomes like the defining aesthetic of the movie. You've got Keanu in a trench coat. You've got all the guns, lots of guns, big shootout, big action set piece. But like, this is like the only big gun moment. Like, they haven't really used guns to this point. But this scene, as awesome it is, like, ends up like sort of defining the look of the movie.
The lobby scene is possibly the most iconic scene in the movie, like outside maybe like the stop at all the bullets, but like that lobby fight, like where they just tear it apart, like guns, so lots cool. Of guns. It's definitely something people remember about it.
And it's made in a way that you wouldn't make it today. I'm going back on this soapbox, but like, they are, first off, I don't know if we've said this explicitly, but like the main cast of this movie had like, I think literally 6 months of martial arts training before production, which is, it's insane because the Wachowskis are basically new filmmakers, and they're, again, putting so much effort into this thing, so much faith into this pre-production. But like, they wanted to shoot it like Hong Kong films with wide shots and the people actually doing it, but with American actors without martial arts experience. And that's one of those demands that like, you can either do that if you're working with not unknown actors, but like you would have trouble doing that with Tom Cruise isn't a good example because he would probably do anything, but Brad Pitt, Robert De Niro, Leonardo DiCaprio, maybe Matt even Damon. Tom Hanks, Matt Damon, a lot of these people, like, that's a huge ask, but you have like young hungry actors that want to make a name for themselves and are willing to go all in on this. Keanu, maybe the biggest name at the time, certainly didn't have to do this, but like I said, he was very sold on the concept and the vision. But it's great they put in the work. I mean, Andrew, you and I are, many other people, obviously huge fans of martial arts films and the Hong Kong style. And like, it can be
taxing.
Yes, but I was gonna say, going back to like America, I paused because I know this sounds like super pretentious film bro cinephile garbage, but like you watch an action movie. The Bourne movies are good, so I hate to use them as an example, but yeah, a fight scene in like one of the Bourne movies where you can't tell what the hell's going on, and it's all cuts and close-ups, and you can't follow the action compared
Taken.
to like
I think Taken is a better example of that. Like the Taken sequels.
that's kind of like the
especially,
degrading of that style,
the kinetic style, the very pro wrestling like 17 cut. The Taken joke is it's Taken 2 or 3, but there's a scene where Liam Neeson jumps over a fence and it cuts like 17 times.
Yeah,
it's like there's no reason for that. He's jumping over a fence.
Well, the reason is it's a 70-year-old man, and they got to hide the fact that it's a stunt double.
Well,
or a 70-year-old man,
they also got to make and the more cuts, and it's a mindset that more cuts makes it feel more kinetic. That was I think the argument with pro wrestling is a lot too. That like if you cut at the moments of impact, it makes it seem heavier, but it also has this impact that it like can really hurt the flow of something. If you're constantly shifting what you're looking at, and the audience's brain is almost having to catch up to what's happening because you're constantly looking at it. This is why I think one-shot takes got so in vogue for a while. It was supposed to be like a specific like rejection of that kinetic style to just be like, you know what, we're going to put all the action in frame. Like the Daredevil hallway scene is one that people call out a lot. Obviously, there are one-shot movies, which are whole different things. But it's always funny to me that like it turns into situations where like people are so concerned with whether or not they can do a one shot. They don't stop to think if they should do a one shot. Like I watched I think it's a movie called Let's Scare Julie, and it's a one shot horror movie. And I may have mentioned this on the show before, but the first scene is like 6 girls talking in a small bedroom. I couldn't stand it. I was like, it's one shot in a small bedroom trying to do coverage for 6 girls having a conversation. And I was just like, and here's what I'll say. I didn't know it was one shot when I turned it on. I just saw the cover and I was like, it looks kind of trippy. A weird, mysterious house next door with some haunted stuff in it. Whatever. Let's watch it. And then I'm watching this first scene and I was like, I think my actual review of this is like, I don't think there's a cut in the first 20 minutes of this movie. And then I realized later, there's no cuts in any of this movie. But, and don't get me wrong, the idea of like a one-shot movie definitely intrigues me. Like being able to do, like, obviously we've spoken about our love of movies like Rope, or things like I think I've mentioned. Oh God, what is the one with Stephen Graham? It's one where he's a chef, and the name of it is completely Boiling Point, I think it's called. But it's a chef movie, single take in a kitchen, and it's that to me, that's almost perfect because you're using the actual kinetic energy of the restaurant to drive your movie instead of stuff. And so anyway, you can use them effectively, but like that idea of kind of the rapid cuts is I don't know. It's a way you can do things, I guess, but it's always to me come off. It just makes my head hurt. That's why I like some of these.
You're trying to generate the energy in post-production versus like, let's just point a camera at people actually fighting and get the energy off of the action. And there's good examples of both styles. There's bad examples of both styles. One's not inherently better than the other, but I love this way this movie was made. And it would not, if they made this movie today, it would not be made this way. It just wouldn't. I look at this lobby shootout and
so tactile, so real. Like,
so much debris and dust flying through the air, and like obviously they're on wires to do all that stuff, like the cartwheel to pick up the gun and then land, or Keanu does like this quadruple kick at the very end.
There's no reason to go that hard, but they do. Like it's one of those things that's like completely the rule of cool. Like, does he need to cartwheel to pick up that gun? No. Does she need to backflip down the hall? No, they don't. But it looks really cool. And like
when she kicks his shotgun and flips over his shoulder, she grabs it behind him and blows him away. It's awesome.
If I tried to do that, I would tear my groin. Like that's
I wouldn't reach the shotgun, to be clear. Yeah, I cannot.
To be clear, I would hurt myself before I got to the shotgun, to be very clear, and then I would die painfully. But
I would trip walking through the metal detector, and one of the guns on my person would shoot me through the head. And the cops would be like, "What just happened?" And then Morpheus would give away the codes. It would not be. He wasn't the one. We got it wrong.
The idea of like Neo walking in and accidentally shooting himself in the head, and just everyone going, ah, so our bad. We're just gonna leave now.
Trinity just walks backwards out the door. I was never here. Yeah, well, that doesn't happen. Instead, it's just a kick-ass action scene. I mean, I love it so much. I love, just the tactile feel of it. And then they get in the elevator. He shoots the cable, so it drops with the bomb in it, and we see the lobby get exploded, which is super cool. And then we go back to the interrogation room, and the sprinklers go off. I love that little comedic beat there. It's great. Eventually, we're gonna end up on the roof.
Not how modern fire systems work, largely.
In what way, Andrew?
They don't typically deploy through the entire building anymore.
Oh,
like
it's
if
like
a fire alarm. If a
it would
fire
be
alarm
that
trips,
section, that floor.
like in data. Jesus Christ! I found a way to talk about data centers on this stupid show. But the way
the show's not stupid. Data centers are stupid.
They are. I liked it a lot more when my job was just blank buildings that didn't slowly kill the environment. It's usually 2-stage systems now. So like what'll happen is a bunch of prerequisites will get met for the water in the pipes to fill the pipes, but then there is a physical component that must be impacted by the environment for it to actually deploy. So there are actual like sprinkler head. There's something around the sprinkler head that has to melt that the heat does. And that's what triggers the water to come down. That water would not come down in anywhere that did not do that. So that's how modern.
What about 1999, Andrew? What do you think?
If they were really cheap, maybe. Weren't really worried about damage. Just feels like if you've got a giant skyscraper, it feels irresponsible to have a fire on the first floor, deploy sprinklers throughout the entire building.
Well, it makes for a comedic beat, and
it does. Like it's very effective.
On the roof,
that's why I don't
one
like
of the
movies.
agents shoots at Neo, and he does this cool thing, Andrew, where he bends backwards, like waves his arms and dodges most of the bullets. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, he looks like one of those inflatable tube mans.
Generally, one of the most famous shots in the history of cinema. I'm not gonna say it's number one. I'm gonna say it's up there. It's one of them. One of the most famous, one of the most recognized, one of the most parodied, especially in the early 2000s. Everything was doing this. Yeah,
it's bullet time is what it's referred to. Just the idea of like specifically using it in relation to like shootout type fights. And this is something that John Woo was kind of notorious for in when he was making, it's not notorious, but just was very well known for in movies like Full Contact, which was that was directed by Ringo Lam. But then even things like A Better Tomorrow, things like Hard Boiled, The Killer, things like that. Those were all kind of these precursors to that style. And the Wachowskis don't hide from this at all. There's no bones about the fact that like Far East cinema, especially the films of like John Woo and Chow Yun-fat, were definitely an influence on something like this, to the point that like if Chow Yun-fat had played Morpheus, I probably would have been fine with that. Instead, he did Bulletproof Monk, which is a choice. #PP.
They certainly wear their influences on their sleeves. And again, going back to my pop-up video experience, they referred to their desire to do a bullet time like this, which was the version we see here was developed for this movie. This was like a huge leap forward in special effects, and the way it was accomplished. I'm not going to walk you through it. This is the documentaries. Go check it out. It's very cool. One notable thing I think is neat. The cameras, they set up a ton of cameras in a circle around them, were still image cameras, like just cameras that took a bunch of pictures, and that's how they did it, which is very.
That's not Neo. That's a picture of Neo.
But anyway, pop-up video thing. They were talking about what they desired. Like they didn't know exactly how it would be pulled off. Because the ultimate way they did it had to be developed for this movie. But what they wanted was the effect of a splash page in comic books. So like in comics, big action moment, you'll flip the page and like there's one image covering the entire page, or sometimes 2 pages. Called a splash page. It's the big like climax of action, the big moment, big action shot. But like in movies, you can't just do a still image. It would have a very jarring effect. You got to move forward. But if they could do slow-mo that's slow enough that you can emphasize one moment and stretch that moment out, it would be like putting a punctuation mark the way splash pages do. And I gotta say, that makes perfect sense to me. Like if I'm reading The Matrix as a comic book, I flip the page. Yeah, there's a cool moment of him bending backwards with bullets frozen in the air. Like that's what a cool translation of a splash page. I thought that was really neat.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, and we've talked about splash pages on the show before, Chris. Pretty sure I've shared my favorite splash page of all time with everybody. So,
well, I'm not going to assume every listener to this episode listen to all of our episodes and knows those splash pages.
I
so
have more faith in all of our listeners than Chris does, apparently.
Apparently. A lot of my notes, because of that pop-up video experience, and that's when I took notes, have like behind-the-scenes details weaved in. One that I really love is whenever they go back into the Matrix so Neo can visit the Oracle, the drive there where Neo's like, I used to eat there. And he's like kind of wrestling with like having memories, but they didn't happen, but they did, but it's real, but it's not kind of thing. I think it was Bill Pope talking, the director of photography. He was saying that at this moment in the film, like he knows this is artificial. Like all the characters are aware of the artificiality. So they wanted this to kind of look fake. And they used rear projection for that scene, which is obviously a very, very old technique in cinema. But like, especially when you see it in like a movie from the 40s, you're like, they're clearly not driving. That's just a screen behind them. Yeah. By 1999, it's a lot more advanced, and I think it looks pretty good. But there is like that weird,
a little bit of an uncanny valley.
Yes, exactly, and that's why it's just a
projection. It looks just not right. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I like that. I love that stuff. Like, I love... all right, so something we talked about for sure, talking about the sequels, was that the movies get greener, or I should say the Matrix, scenes within the Matrix get greener as the movies go along, because during the second and third movie, the Matrix is slowly unraveling and getting destroyed, so by the time you have like the big fight between Smith and Neo in the third movie, it's just... the world's just green. Like, it's very overt. But that gradually happens throughout the 2 movies. Now, the Matrix being green has always been a thing in the Matrix. They use green tones in the Matrix and blue tones in the real world for that distinction. And the reason it's green is kind of it's just the code is green, so it makes sense. And also it's a little bit of an unpleasant look. It gives you that sterile look. And so, like, a lot of the costuming and sets will have green worked into it, and just the slightest little hint of, like, a green tint. It's always been a thing. Now, this movie has an interesting history with its home releases, because, like, VHS and the original DVD pressing and Laserdisc, apparently, all have pretty much true color grading with the theatrical experience. But by the time it's released on Blu-ray, which is after the sequels have been made, the green tint was increased to what some people would say is like an obnoxious degree. Now, I gotta say, I watched it on 4K, which kind of reverts back to its original color grading, and I watched the Blu-ray for the pop-up experience. I guess it's greener. I don't know. I think it's the kind of thing you don't notice unless there's like side-by-side pictures. You can kind of see it. But it's something that people have argued about for a long time. All I really want to say about it is I think it's kind of cool. The reason I bring it up is like I love whenever the filmmaking process and the techniques are informing the narrative. Like that rear projection has a purpose. Yeah. They're doing it because they want it to feel a little artificial. The Matrix being tinted green because of the code. The real world being blue because it's like softer and it's a very cold world in a lot of way, like physically cold and just sterile. Like old machines. I like that. Like sometimes you can do something because it looks cool and that's it and that's fine. But like whenever it feeds into the narrative, that's what gets my juices flowing. I mean, how many times have I talked about Memento and that movie plays backwards, not just because it's cool, but for narrative purpose. That's just the coolest thing in the world to me. And I love those examples here.
I don't understand people who want to watch Memento in chronological order. I don't understand it.
There's a way to do it on the special edition
I know.
DVD which I have.
Why would
but
you?
I've never done it. I would want to do it. If anything, it would be like just for the novelty or experience, or see how it feels to play out.
Yeah.
But it would 100% not be a better experience. Like, that's not how the movie's meant to be watched, obviously.
The point is the climax is the middle of the quote story. That's the point, folks. Anyway, that is actually why I went and bought this original 1999 Matrix DVD that I'm showing you, that the listeners can't see. Because
Dude, that's such an old school DVD. That's the crappy. Yeah, it's like
the
it's paper.
Cardboard. It's like
Yeah.
cardboard, but then it's like the plastic thing that has like the black clip on the side.
Hated those cases.
Yeah, this infuriated me when I picked it up, and I still bought it. It's because it was for that reason, because I had heard that when the reloaded Revolutions were coming out, that the Blu-rays and the updated versions, they had changed the Matrix to be more green. Now, I found somebody who did a breakdown. They did like side by side, and there's a difference. There is. But what I will say is this. I believe it has been overstated, especially in regards to the first one. I do think the second and the third one look pretty green at times, and I don't think that that's a mistake. Like you said, the changes in the original are there, but not to the level that I guess my brain would have thought. Like, people really made it sound like they switched the original to be like on the level of the rest. I just don't think that's true, even if you look at like side by sides. Anyway, I'm just going to rip it, put it in the Plex, and then that disc can go sit in a bin for wherever for the rest of its days. Yeah, it's the Matrix DVD was actually, and like, it's kind of funny because you mentioned to me that the laser disc of the Matrix sells for a lot of money, but the DVD doesn't. But it's because there's millions of them.
That makes sense. Yeah,
it was the first DVD to sell more than 1 million copies in the U.S. by 2000. By 2000, it had sold more than 3 million copies. At that point, it was the top selling DVD release of all time. Eventually, Gladiator surpasses it. 1 month after the Matrix Reloaded DVD was released, the Matrix had exceeded 30 million copies in circulation. It was a massive success in the UK, sold over 100,000 copies there. It is just unbelievable. Massive, huge success on DVD. Obviously, Laserdisc releases generally tend to be pretty niche because Laserdisc was a very cumbersome format, just similar to Betamax in the sense that they just never caught on. Laserdisc was one of those ones that was, I don't know if you folks have ever seen Laserdisc, but they're basically vinyl-sized CDs that were basically movies. That's what they were. But you had to get Laserdisc players to play them, and they were digital, but still had to go through analog. So, that's what DVDs did for a while. They still went through RCA connectors. HDMI comes much later, but it was a niche form, and the whole reason I think Laserdisc stuff tends to be a little bit more expensive is because sometimes there are things that only exist in Laserdisc. There are certain movies that like Laserdisc is still like the best version that exists. So there are versions of things that get credit for that reason. Criterion Collection used to release Laserdiscs. There's a Ghostbusters Criterion Collection Laserdisc that I've thought about getting despite not having a Laserdisc player. Nor any desire to get one. Like, I have in the back of my head, I kind of wish I had a top-loading VCR just because the novelty of that would make me feel good. But I have zero inkling to get a Laserdisc player. Like, less than zero. I wouldn't do it. That's like an I win the lottery and I just want an unnecessarily complicated audio-visual setup that gives me the option to play anything. But that's literally like I have disposable income and nothing to worry about type scenario. And I have disposable income now, but I don't want to spend it on a Laserdisc player. But so the color grading thing is, I think, kind of overblown, especially in relation to the first one. I don't mind having stuff like that. Like, I mentioned to you that I also have the 1999 a DVD of Phantom Menace, because in that DVD, Yoda is a puppet. He's not CG like he is on the later versions. So those are the types of things I like having, just original versions where there were changes. But I'm not big on movies being redone later, and I know the 4K for things gets into a lot of heady space about that, where people try to say that 4Ks are changing the movie, quote unquote. But I just like having stuff. I like watching stuff, and in the case of The Matrix, I will say that I think the changes to the original have been overblown a little bit.
Andrew, if we were going to give the Mark Strong Award to someone that's not a cast member, it's got to be Yuan Wu Ping, right? The choreographer, the kung fu choreographer that they hire, who was huge in Hong Kong films at the time, directed movies I'm not personally familiar with, so I am looking at a list here. I'm not trying to flex any muscles here, but directed such action stars as Sammo Hung, Yuan Biao, Donnie Yen, Jet Li, and Michelle Yeoh. And them hiring him, which is like a super cool, nerdy move. Like, obviously, the Wachowskis, I mean, they wore their influence on the sleeves. They wanted Hong Kong cinema style fights. So they just like literally went to Hong Kong cinema movies and like, who's the choreography there? Yeah, let's get that guy. And him working on this kind of kickstarts a Hollywood career for him. He does the Kill Bill movies, obviously the Matrix sequels, Kung Fu Hustle, Crouching Tiger. So very cool. Everyone wins here. But he agreed to do it on the condition that he had full control over the scenes, which they grant him. And they would literally like build the set, the dojo, for example. Like, this is the script, this is what we want. He would get his guys in there. He's basically direct the scenes. He would do the blocking, film on like his handheld camera what it's going to be, and then they just follow his guide and recreate it. And obviously, all the actors learned all the moves, talked already about the extent of martial arts training they went through. But that move gives this movie such an identity with the hand-to-hand combat. So much so that like he doesn't come back for Resurrections, and his influence is greatly felt. And I like that movie overall, but like the combat is not the same in that movie as it was in the first three.
It is not. Did you say you haven't seen anything that he's done? Any of his movies?
I said I couldn't list it off the top of my head, so I just wanted to shout out a few.
He did Drunken Master.
See, Drunken Master, yeah.
That's the very iconic Jackie Chan, obviously breakout performance of Jackie Chan, some would say. But yeah, then you get into things like Iron Monkey, like you mentioned with Donnie Yen, and Tai Chi Master with Jet Li. You've got the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon sequel that he does, which I forget exists a lot of the time. He does the Tiger Cage series. He's really good. And then he's obviously got a bunch of things that he just did choreography for, including Ip Man 4. Obviously, he was brought in for the Kill Bill movies, like you mentioned. Kung Fu Hustle, which is one of the funnest movies that you're ever going to watch. Did he do Shaolin Soccer? He did not. What a shame. Shaolin Soccer rules, though, folks. It's there's a movie that I will probably be waiting for a fancy 4K of for a very long time. I think I have a DVD of Shaolin Soccer. There's I think Nova releasing, which is like a South Korean place has one, but the subtitles are apparently quite dodgy. This is the fight style of this is just unbelievable, and it's like you said, it's a huge part of the longevity of the movie. I mean, the action sequences are arguably like you said, the lack of him in Resurrections is felt. Now, it's and I get it. Resurrections is supposed to be a different thing. It's not trying to be the same thing, and so it's obviously not just going to repeat that. And obviously, he is almost 20 years older than he was when these movies were coming out. So it's understandable to a degree that maybe sure. He wasn't in it. But there's obviously, but like I said, I think it's felt. I don't know that I've ever noticed this before, but I think honestly the biggest thing that's kind of interesting to me, just looking back at the colors, the Matrix poster is not green at all.
It's not. It's blue. It's very
blue.
noticeable. So let me pull out this box set again. I'm gonna spread out like the cases here, and the first one stands out. Even in this box set, you put it next to all the other ones.
One of these things is not like the other. Yeah,
the only one that is blue. Yeah,
it's odd. So the green is definitely something that I feel like they leaned into a lot more later, but still cool.
It's amazing. I just mentioned how like these fight scenes sort of define the movie, but like there's no one thing that defines it. I think it's part of that X factor I was talking about. But like you could say like the fight choreography defines this movie, sets it apart. But you could also say the aesthetics and the style does. You could also say the special effects do, or the heady narrative. Like there's so many different things. It's so ambitious and sticks the landing, which is so rare. Like I always admire movies that like are super ambitious and like the director can't quite reel it all in, but I appreciate the swing. I'm thinking like almost said David Fincher, not David Fincher. Andrew, who did Pi and Requiem for a Dream?
Darren Aronofsky.
Thank you. Darren Aronofsky is The Fountain. I describe that movie a lot as like super ambitious, and maybe it doesn't quite work, but like I like the swing. I like him going for it. But this is like a super rare example of like they tie in every one of their influences and make this hodgepodge of a thing that creates like a brand new thing. Like we were celebrating this movie for being like an original IP and original characters and being this huge sea change for the industry. And it is those things. But it's also very much anime, very much Hong Kong, very much comic book. The influences are very clear. I mentioned earlier that I watched Ghost in the Shell this week because after watching this movie with my daughter, who loves anime, I was like, we should watch Ghost in the Shell, which was a huge influence on this movie. There's a lot of influences here, but if I had to pick like a singular movie as the most influential, it's that one. And the Wachowskis themselves, even when pitching this to the studio, said, we want to make this but for real. That was like their number one touch point. And you watch that movie and like they are plugging into the network by putting a plug into the back of their neck. The climax of the movie is a big speech about minor spoilers maybe, a machine, a program talking about the nature of life and how similar genetic codes are to digital codes, and is there truly a difference, and where do they meet, where do they merge, what qualifies as life? A lot of themes you see repeated here in the movie, similar to Star Wars in that way, where like once Star Wars hits, it's like, oh well, here's this brand new thing, Star Wars. But then you watch like samurai films or Flash Gordon serials and you're like, oh, but the influence is very clear. They just I don't know what it tied them together and created a new thing. And none of this is the takeaway from the creators, George Lucas, the Wachowskis, or anybody, because that's not easy to do, to iterate in such a fresh way and bring such disparate ideas together into one package. But it's just the nature of art where you can follow influences back and back and back until friggin' cave drawings if you really go far.
Everything informs everything else. It's true. And like, this is something that like, I feel like we've talked about this endlessly. The idea that, something like Akira is, a great example for yourself. By the time you watched Akira, you had seen so many things that were influenced by Akira that it impacted watching Akira to an extent where you're just kind of like, oh, well, I've seen so many things that are kind of doing the same thing, but it's that you're missing that piece that like for so many people, Akira was the thing they saw first. Yeah. And then it expanded into these other things. And so, The Matrix for a lot of people, and even Tarantino to an extent, when you're doing like Tarantino's, influence of Chinese and Japanese cinema is a huge influence on stuff like Kill Bill and even like Reservoir Dogs and all sorts of things where people can point to like specific movies and influences that are like playing in that wheelhouse. Now, I don't know that Tarantino is quite as open about his influences as some others are. But it all informs everything else. And, The Dark Knight isn't a bad movie because it basically Heat. If you're going to steal from the best, but it's something where like, people talk about that, or like they'll be like, oh, well, there's endless debates where, like I think it was the theme song for Cowboy Bebop. People are like, oh, it's plagiarized. And like you listen to the thing, they claim it's plagiarizing it. And you're just kind of like, no, maybe a little bit, but like it's, I don't know. You
talking about that jazz theme? I don't watch
Yeah.
Cowboy Bebop, but it has like a jazz, like big band style intro, right?
Yeah.
That's like an art form that is all about iterating and influence and quote unquote stealing, but like homaging and iterating. So what a silly genre to.
Do you
put
find it
away.
interesting that the symphony orchestras for cities are not called cover bands?
I've never thought about it, Andrew, but
All they do is play music other people wrote.
Hmm.
That's not true exclusively, but for the sake of this joke, folks, let it go. Say, you show up and you play Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, and everyone's like, "Wow, what a masterpiece!" But yet, I form a Flock of Seagulls tribute band, and I'm a chump that needs to grow up and do something with his life. That just doesn't seem fair. This movie rules, folks. Like, we could sit here for another hour and talk about it, but this movie's great.
and we will. Andrew, I love. No, just put a cap on the whole influences thing, and like, we talked about the religious overtones and how many styles and storytelling traditions are laid on top of each other, and they stick the landing, and it works. But like, you have like the hero's journey here, and you have like, this is what I love. That you have a character called the One and a character called the Oracle, and the prophecy is known as, let me check my notes, the prophecy. Like, they just let the things be like what the archetype is. The fact that the chosen one is a trope in storytelling, and they just call it the One, and because of movie success, the One becomes like the One TM. Now you talk about the One, you're talking about Neo in the Matrix. The Oracle, yeah, it's that lady, it's Gloria Foster in the Matrix. But like, the concept of an oracle has been around since stories have existed. So I love the I don't know if it's just the boldness of using just the naked thing in the story. And I like that they don't shy away from what they are. I say this in jest, stealing from.
That would be like making a movie with complicated time travel and naming your main character the protagonist. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Also, Christopher Nolan would hate that you said time travel, Andrew. It's not a time travel movie. Reverses entropy. It's a different thing entirely. I'm just saying what the man said.
I know what the man said. It can be stupid.
Andrew wants his phone call. If anybody wants to know what he just did to me on camera. Yeah, we could talk about this movie forever. We could keep going, but I think we've made our point. I
love the
people
intro.
know that this
Did we
movie
mention
is
the intro?
awesome.
Mention the intro. Trinity setting up.
No,
perfectly.
but I love a good prologue. This is one of my favorites. The Dark Knight bank robbery is great too. Up is like an entire movie as a prologue. Like that prologue defines that movie. There's a lot of great prologues in cinema. But what I love about this one? It pulls a T2, Terminator 2, not Trainspotting 2. It pulls a Terminator 2.
Was confused there.
I know. Where, speaking of not being confused, watching that blind, you might not know who's good and who's bad. Yeah. I mean, you will, but like, it's played as if it's ambiguous. You might assume the cops and police and guy in suit is the good guy trying to catch this criminal in leather that's about to take him down. Similar to the hallway scene in Terminator 2. Even though we all knew at that time,
they gave that away, right? Like, they gave that away before it came out, right?
Yeah.
Imagine going into that. We've talked about that before, I'm sure, but just like, imagine going
somehow
into that
going
blind and not knowing. Yeah, like, oh my God.
But this prologue functions that way too, and it's a very cool scene.
Batman '89 has a really good prologue too. Like, they're just killing it. These movies are just killing it with the prologues here.
That would be I'm not typically a list guy, but I would like to see a list of like best prologues
best intro scene or whatever you want to call it. But it is it's a great sequence. It kicks off the movie in just the right way. Like you said, you get a great introduction to this character. You get a good little taste of the world before they kind of snap us into the larger story with Neo. But it's good stuff. Turns out these Wachowskis know how to make a fucking movie.
I'm having a great time on our little tour here, Andrew, and I also have the advantage of knowing what is to come. We have only revealed the first 3 movies as of the time of this recording, but you know what? We're going to update what's coming out. If you want to see the rest of the tour, maybe I'll keep that last movie a surprise. But otherwise, you want to see what we have coming up? You know what I'm going to say right here. I'm going to say jump into that Discord. There's a link in the show notes. Come and join us if you haven't already. I'll be sure to make a post of what's coming up on the rest of this tour. But rest assured, it is exciting stuff. These first 2 movies to kick it off, we were filling in the gaps in a franchise. Our next stop is going to be Copland, the movie we have undoubtedly talked about the most on this podcast. We always find a way to bring it up. And it rules, and it is well received, but I still think to this day does not get the flowers it deserves. So I am happy to jump into that one. Andrew, you got to be excited, right? I think you're the one that first turned me on to this movie.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. This one, what's the other one I said? Quiz Show. That was the other one I remember, like really being like, you would love Quiz Show. But
and
Copland, you did. I was correct. Not like the time I recommended Breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo. But Copland is great. It's one of those things that like you said, despite what it is, it still feels like it kind of flies under the radar. It's great. I'm absolutely going to be overjoyed to talk about it.
After Copland, we have a 4-pack of movies, 2 picked by you, 2 picked by me, that are sort of half, these movies are very important to me, and half, I'm going to make my co-host finally watch this movie so we can talk about it and see how he feels. So if you want to see what those 4 are, I will put them in the Discord. You'll see ahead of time. You can leave us some positive thoughts on them so we can talk about it as we record that episode. And until next time, until we talk about Copland, which Mike Lynch in our Discord called Character Actor the Movie, which I think is apt. Just remember that maybe not every movie is great,
but all movies have greatness.
Thank you to Mark Benavides for singing our theme song. You can check him out on Instagram at NotThatMarkAnthony. Thanks to Mitch for the music. You can follow him on Blue Sky and check out our show notes for the SoundCloud link. Check out our store on TeePublic for some Best of the Rest merch. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend because that's the only way that we grow. Follow us on social media at BOTRcast. Thank you.
I have more faith in all of our listeners than Chris does, apparently.
Apparently.
Hey, Bruce, what's up?
Hey, bud. What do you want to say to me?
Oh, he wants to watch the movies.
Power Rangers say Super Samurai?
What, bud?
Why does Power Rangers say Super Samurai?
Because that's Uncle Dylan's Super Samurai DVD.
What? I seen the Gold Ranger. Doesn't show him on any of them.
What did you want to tell me?
You're the best dad
That's what you want to come in here and tell me?
ever.
I didn't pay him to say this.
Come on.
I love you, bud. Let me finish the podcast, okay?
Say hi to the listeners.
You say hi to anybody? Okay.
When you finished?
When am I finished? Well, I'm talking about the Matrix, bud. It's like 4 more hours.
Oh my god.
Not that much longer, bud. I'll come get you.